I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. On the agenda is SEH, so we'll go ahead and let John take over. Actually, do I need to approve the agenda? Probably, yeah. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. All right, now take it away, John.
Great. Dalton, can I share screen? It looks like it's disabled on my end.
I got you. I'll give you permission.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
Okay, y'all should be able to see this Word doc. These are the minutes from the last meeting. It looks like we have Ryan also on board from Bluestone right now as well. So,
Can you turn your remote for the projector? It's in your drawer. Yes, right, just a little bit. Thank you, guys.
I'll go through this real briefly, a couple minutes, kind of set the stage for the next, hour conversation or so. So last time we met was July 11th, it looks like, and we went over preliminary construction documents. At that time, we weren't completely finished with CDs yet. And we also discussed a few issues with above ceiling cabling that had come up, and also discussed the emergency communications area. So we had a little bit more ground to cover before we were ready to put things out to bid. So with that in mind, we spent the interim here, I'll say the last month, a little over a month, getting some of those things sort of wrapped up, getting drawings to a certain extent where we're just about ready to go out to bid, which we'll talk about here after a little bit. And I think the intention here is to go through the drawings and make sure everybody's on the same page. I think what it does is lets everybody know where we're at right now, gives an opportunity to maybe voice some concerns, make any kind of minor adjustments to the drawings that we might need to. But really what it does in my mind is sets expectations as we get into bid and then eventually get into award and construction and things like that. So we're kind of setting the stage right now to get into bid, and then also expectations for the overall project. I believe Wilden Group, Bluestone finished up the energy audit. I think maybe we can touch on that again as we get into MEP discussions. We've provided the latest construction cost estimate, which we can certainly talk about in this meeting. Insurance requirements, I have been able to obtain those, and I will get those updated for the bid documents. Emergency communications, we could talk about a little bit more as we get into drawings, but we did intend to leave the ceilings alone and then backfeed the HVAC. So we took that work, the ceiling work, out of the drawings right now. Allowances right now, we set up 4 allowances. We have the owner's contingency allowance, which we talked about being 10%. Materials testing during construction, I think it's best to handle that by allowance. That gives the contractors an even playing field when they're bidding the project, and then provides whatever sort of funding is required for material testing during construction. Commissioning, I don't think we've talked a great deal about, but I think that is a requirement for the project funding source. So that we can discuss again a little bit more during MEP. Right now, we're going to carry an allowance for commissioning, and that just ensures that everything that is done during construction to the HVAC, ventilation system, all that is actually doing what it's intended to do. So that's really kind of coming in later and testing all the systems, making sure they're actually providing airflows, exhaust, things of that nature accordingly. I have seen systems installed and tested, and they don't, at the end of the project, sometimes do exactly what they should be doing. So they get adjusted, updated. Sometimes things get fixed on systems, things of that nature. So that's commissioning. And then also the additional plenum cabling. We don't know exactly how much that's going to cost once the ceilings are down, but we're going to put in an allowance to cover that as well. So the allowance is really kind of a maximum dollar amount. We don't necessarily need to hit that in every case, but it's funding available to fund these sort of unknowns as we move forward. Alternates, again, I think we're all aware of these. The roof replacement, probably the largest alternate right now. We do have the drawings and specs put together for that, so it will be bid on. These are add alternates, so you're going to have your base bid, and then also you'll have alternates that you can add to that base bid at your choosing. So base bid will be our kind of basis cost for the project, including all the allowances. And if there's room in the budget and everybody's ready to move forward with these items, we can certainly add those onto the base bid. So roof replacement, operable partition in the public meeting room, demolition of the walls and cells in the jail space, and then also the alternate for would be a price for the additional network cable, which would then be covered by the allowance. So that's the way it's set up right now. I have not heard a response from Barry Johnson on a preliminary just discussion on the on our building code review. I think what'll happen from here is after we get bids and a contractor is awarded, then it would go in for permitting. I think we, my opinion, I think we have all of our bases covered in terms of the building codes and how they relate to this existing building. But I have not been able to really connect with Perry and just kind of chat about the process. So ACM, we have the report. We're going to give that out to bidders. They will be responsible for coordinating ACM removal during construction, and also in terms of how it's phased. So I think moving forward, I think there will probably be some questions from contractors during the bidding phase, but I think that's all things that we can address during bidding. Kind of get close to the end here. Toilet room accessories, I need to touch base with Zach. Lock sets for new doors, we're going to specify around your existing Sargent lock door, locks system. MEP, why don't we hold that for the next, for after 10 o'clock, we can come back and hit this MEP. It's sort of things we touched on already in terms of cabling and I think emergency communications. So we'll dive back into that. The schedule moving forward, and we can come back and hit on this again, but general overview today, August 17th, we're going through the final drawings, getting those ready to go out to bid. And I think what we can do now is just sort of talk about these bid dates. So September 8th, we're proposing to put the project out to bid, which would be a little, somewhere around 3 weeks from now. And we could talk about, a little bit more about that. A few weeks later, usually the bid, I try to hit 4 weeks for bidding duration on a project like this. So drawings will go out potentially September 8th. We could let general contractors make them aware that the project's going out to bid. That'll give them a few weeks to look over the project, get all their subs together, start kind of getting their heads wrapped around what the project entails. And then they also can ask us any questions in that time through the sort of pre-bid RFI process. That's a request for information. They can ask us formalized questions prior to bid, and we can respond to those questions prior to bid, just to make sure everybody's really on the same page, so to speak, with how they put their bids together. if there's any deficiencies too on our end, which obviously we're hoping there's not any unforeseen things that we can, we can update, get that information out again prior to bid. So everybody's on the same playing field. Pre-bid walkthrough, September 22nd. I think that's 3 weeks later, if I'm right. 2 weeks later after it goes out. We would have the contractors would be invited with their subcontractors to come to the building and do their walkthroughs. And again, we could answer, there's usually, contractors will sort of hold off until the walkthrough, till they can get some eyes on what they're looking at. And a lot of times those questions will come in on the 22nd. And then October 6th would be the due date for the bids. So kind of dove through that pretty quickly. Any questions at all on any of those items?
I have none.
I have none.
Great. So appreciate you kind of sitting through that. So we do have the drawings and we do have the cost estimate as well. I think what I'll do is we can briefly go through the drawings. I don't want to kind of protract the process, but in terms of a page turn, I'm here to flip through the pages, I suppose, and kind of walk through what the intentions are of the project, what we have included in the documents. I don't think I'll go through every single page, but I'm going to cover the floor plans and then any questions we might have on. A lot of what I'm doing is interior as it relates to interior remodel, ceilings, restrooms, things of that nature. So there's a lot in there, but in terms of a scope of work, it's limited, obviously, to a lot of interior and then obviously the roof. So could be that we can kind of get through this fairly quickly and then start talking about the cost estimate and then answer any other questions we have before we dive into MEP. So we did do a code plan for permitting. Basically, we do this on most every project, and it sort of just goes through the intent of the project, how it relates to the current codes. This is an existing building. We're not changing occupancy types or anything of that nature. So really it's, in my mind, architecturally, it's a fairly straightforward interior remodel project and potentially a re-roof of the building. So we try to do our best by you to get all the information in this code review document, just to let the building inspectors locally know what we intend to do with the project, and that we try to write in there that we're following all the codes as we perceive them, and we always try to put our best foot forward to accommodate codes and make sure we're following the codes, and that goes with International Building Code, as well as ADA codes and some of the other plumbing and electrical codes and things of that nature. So feel free to jump in and stop me at any time with any questions as we kind of go through this. That's all. Prior is all ADA information. This is sort of the nuts and bolts on how the walls are put together when they're building new walls. We have the phasing plan. I know we touched on this quite a little bit. If everybody has interest, we can go through it one final time. I see one mistake in there that I'll update. So this is time to catch some of those things, but I still, looks like I have the comm room separated out down in this lower level, which caught my eye, but I'll give it the kind of brief overview. Roofing, if that alternate is accepted and added, the roofing can really happen at the contractor's discretion. I think typically they would wait to do that until after they have all the mechanicals on the roof, and they can come back and re-roof after that, rather than re-roofing and then going, working on top of the new roof. I've seen that happen. Sometimes it doesn't result in the best overall end product. So we can discuss that with the contractor again after awards are accepted and whatnot, in terms of how they want to schedule and approach the project. Yellow is our first phase. So That's half of the second floor. The vast majority, if not all, of the ground floor. And I'm going to change this. This is no longer part of the first floor down for dispatch. Second phase is blue. That is the second half of the second floor and half of the first floor. And then final is green, which is the other half of the first floor. And I will say now the vast majority of the basement also. So any questions at all? The kind of light red is the corridors for that matter, and the vast majority of that is to drop the ceilings and install new ceilings, HVAC, lighting and things like that back into place. So that will need to be coordinated per phase in terms of how the contractor intends to do that. Any questions at all? Or I can just keep kind of going right on through. Okay.
I know
demolition.
I got questions coming up, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Especially on the
Perfect.
bathrooms, but
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
you can just
Demolition
wait.
plans, again, we're all aware that covers what's being removed. That's kind of one of the first phases that happens is demolition. Ground floor. So nothing in the basement right now, right off the get-go in terms of new work. Really nothing happening. There will be some work in the chases and whatnot for mechanical down in the basement, but again, nothing for the communications really. I should say that there will be ceiling work, obviously, as the project gets phased. Ground floor, where we've landed, is that the jail is a alternate if you choose, and there's money in the project to do that. Jail space can be demoed. Otherwise, what we have on this floor is the updated meeting room, temporary space. This I perceive as more of a public temporary space for temporary moving of departments such as, I suppose, auditor, other groups of that nature that have that public interface. Then we also have a temp space right here, which would just be a general, space for potentially, IT, some of the non-public facing departments as well.
Weren't you gonna use part of the east part of the future boardroom as a temporary space too?
We were going to.
Change that though?
We did change our minds on that, and the idea was, let's go ahead and create a temporary space over here and just keep it rather than build it here and then demolish it. So I think our thought was whatever money that's spent over here would be saved by not having to build and then demolish and just sort of waste that, some of that construction work. So I think where we landed was to do the 2 temp spaces and then not do this particular area. Okay. Public meeting room. So we have the public meeting room, and then we have also, it could all be one room. We do have the alternate in to provide a temporary, I'll say a movable partition that can be opened or closed to divide the spaces if that alternate is taken. So that is an alternate. It could be constructed either way, depending on where we land on bid day. So I don't think there's any surprises here. I know we landed with the millwork for the supervisor's desk in more of this V shape. We have a 1-seat desk over here with the printer. Podium and, table will be in the contract. That is one thing I still need to finish up on. I'll put together drawings on those. So I'm at 90%. I still have 10% more to do before it goes out to bid. So just FYI, I'm going to finish these items up. We have some millwork back here, lower cabinets, upper cabinets, and a sink. And we have storage that would be for any chairs that need to maybe move in and out of the space. And then we created an office as well, just for, I don't know if anybody's really going to live in that room, so to speak, but I think it's more for use for the public meetings.
Discussions.
So I'll pause there a little bit and answer any questions anybody might have on this.
If someone needs or somebody to privately.
Okay. Not hearing a lot of questions this morning. I think this is all stuff we've been through probably multiple times. So probably not without reason that we're not getting a lot of questions, but anything in general at all on this ground floor?
I guess the only thing that when I was looking at, the construction items here, item 29 and 30 say there's, 3 toilets or 3 women's toilet accessories and 3 men's toilet accessories. Is that just for the second floor?
Yeah, exactly.
It's nothing. We're not doing anything with the bathrooms on this floor at all.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. So I think we have 3 fixtures in each restroom. Yeah, and that all pertains, I suppose, to the first floor restrooms. Not this floor though. The only thing happening on this floor in the restrooms will be obviously associated with the HVAC replacement, which would be ceiling.
Those are right here, right?
Yeah.
Are those currently handicap accessible? They are, aren't they?
I'm sure that door is not.
Yeah.
The restroom on this floor is, I don't think it hits every, I don't think they would be considered ADA accessible. However, you do have the accessible restrooms you will have them on the first floor as well as an elevator to access those.
Well, there again, I know it's additional cost, but I guess I don't want to look back 5 or 10 years ago. Why didn't we do those restrooms while we were
Doing it all.
doing it all? I guess that's my only comment on that, whatever the board feels.
I guess my concern was them not being ADA right next to the board space when if you have a lot of public come and somebody is in a wheelchair, it'd be nice for them just to be able to go right across the hallway and use the restroom instead of having to access the elevator, go upstairs. But again, with cost.
Yeah, one other thing I would throw in just for consideration is, unfortunately, I think those land right over the top of the communications area, maybe. Not 100%, but those could potentially, and I guess I would further say maybe not. I know that this stack right here falls into the data room.
It goes right in that pillar in the data room, right in front of the servers.
And then a lot of your plumbing is really going to be in this chase, which may land a little bit more over the communications area. So I think it's a great idea to redo those potentially. However, I just wanted to make you aware that it could cause some issues, I suppose, down the road with the emergency communications group working in that area.
You know what we need to do to bring that up to date? Is it just the widening the doors or? I don't even know how many,
Yes, and typically with ADA, you do as best as you can, given the existing conditions,
That one.
existing circumstances. I would say right off the cuff, I know, I believe, and I could open drawings and we could look at it, but I think there's a sink, a urinal, and one water closet in the men's room, for instance. I think it would be a matter of, there's a few things I suppose you need to look at. A lot of it is clearances and turning circles. I think that you would need to make the water closet space a lot larger. Not sure how that then affects where the urinal is located. So you need 5 feet at the water closet, 32 inches at the urinal. So that wall needs to be at least, let's say roughly 7.5 feet, just this wall right here. Maybe we're there, maybe not.
John, why we have to have male and female? Couldn't it just be one unisex handicap, that whole area, if we were gonna change something?
they them. Huh?
No, but I mean, a lot of places have just one,
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, I think.
that way there's a bathroom for
Mhm.
A just a unisex bathroom down there.
this handicap. There's plenty of space for that.
Is there plenty of space to convert the women's and the men's both to a unisex?
I think so.
That's what he's saying. He doesn't think so. So I'm just saying, what if we just did?
Yeah, just one. Well, it kind of gets into a gray area that I have a sort of a difficult time answering. I'd like to just say yes. I get that question a lot. You know, can we just sort of do that? Well, yeah, I think the answer is where you do have restrooms, you have to have male and female restrooms. Both. I'm not sure if that means on every floor you need to have that. That's kind of where that gray area comes in. You also need to have an adequate number of fixtures. Let's say a full house day at the courthouse, you need to have an adequate number of fixtures. They don't have to be spread out through every floor, I don't believe, but you have to have enough in the building. And usually what we'll do as architects is go through and we'll distribute them out through the building floor to floor. So I'd hate to reduce the fixture count and just say we're okay without really doing some homework on it. I think what we could potentially try to do, what's on this floor, we have a large public meeting room. So we have what we could consider an assembly room, which could get to be a pretty decent number of people. So with that said, the more occupants you have, the more, facilities you really need for that particular floor. Let's just say that. You could go to another level and still use restrooms. So I'm not discounting that is not an option, but what I'd need to do is, this is kind of new stuff, kind of new ground, I suppose, to replace these restrooms right now. I think we'd have to do a fixture count, occupant count with where we're ending up with the project and just make sure we have our bases covered. I think worst case scenario, we could do our best to make these restrooms ADA compliant and use that as a starting point without combining and making a unisex. If we did do a unisex, oftentimes what I'll try to do is leave what you have alone and then do a unisex restroom in another location.
John, I did just go down there and actually, is this possible? You could widen the door frame on the women's, because there's only one
Water closet.
toilet,
Okay.
water closet in there. And actually there's a partition, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because if you just make it a locking door, then it'd be considered ADA because you can get a wheelchair in there.
Well,
Yes.
Couldn't you do that with men's too?
I think so. I peeped in there.
Do you need just have it so it's a locked door.
Yeah.
Locked door
Yeah.
don't have a partition.
Yeah.
When
Is
I-
that possible, John?
Yes, that would be, yeah. I would like to say that we could certainly do that. I wanted to open the drawings,
you have to
take a
widen the
peek
door
to the
frame,
Widen the
but-
door a bit.
restrooms kind of look at, but I think for discussion purposes, I would lean towards remodeling those. And when I say that, not a full kind of gut and redo, maybe new fixtures, partitions. So Yeah, just one. And the door has to be 32 inches clear. So we might be there, maybe not, but we could widen that. I guess the answer to that question is yes, we could widen that. You have one sink, one toilet, you put a lock on the door, you're good to go with the women's restroom. Men's restroom is going to be a little bit more difficult. Looks like things are pretty tight in there. You need a larger area around the toilet, but that's
What if you
something
took that partition out of there? Just took the
Mhm.
partition out of the men's room,
And just make it a lock.
make it a locked door.
yeah, okay. Yeah, we can do that.
They're actually in really good shape, the bathrooms themselves.
And then if we have to widen the door, that we could do that. That'd be simple. I mean,
Be a simple
I wouldn't
fix.
think it'd be, of course, everything is not simple when it comes to dollars, but would think we wouldn't be, we're not looking at a lot of dollars here, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, and I agree with 100%, and I think we wouldn't necessarily have to get into plumbing either, which would be great. So
No, I think you'd be, if nothing
No
else,
plumbing.
just put set new fixtures over the existing plumbing.
right, exactly, yeah.
Lower. The sinks would both have to be lowered, but that's
Yeah,
not,
sinks might have to be lower, but
Yeah, that's all doable without getting into the spaces below, I would imagine,
huh?
for the most part.
Wouldn't have to move any piping or anything like that or drains.
Scared.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we'd like to probably move forward with doing that in this project.
I think that's probably one area we should.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't know,
I think it's.
we want to give it a little bit of a facelift down there as well.
Probably.
Yeah. I would think so.
I like the pink.
We like the pink tile.
We'll let you take it. Oh, it's okay, I have it up here.
Yeah, so also maybe tile work as well.
I don't know what other floors down
They're those little,
Penny tile.
little tiny
tile.
tiles.
Penny
The
tile.
women's.
there. Little pink ugly tile.
come back in style in your lifetime.
What are we doing in the upstairs bathroom as far as the tile and,
That's black and white.
We're going zebra colors.
oh, that's right.
What's your thoughts, Rich, on that?
Well, I don't know whether you know plumbing. I don't know if you can retain the urinal in the men's. We may have to block that off, and that could really jump into a little bit. I would think that we could consider those two. My only concern here is as we bid this project, are these going to be in separate phases, John? Or is this like phase one, all of this remodel? Because these numbers are getting quite a ways above what we may have available.
Yeah, so this, to answer the question, yeah, this will be part of the phasing. And I believe this would be part of phase one for this floor, this particular area would be phase one. So the first phase, and also you touched on another point, the cost of the project. The reason why it went up, I think, from the last go round is we added some allowances to the project. I think that's really where that increase came from. I would say right now, maybe a thought on this, just following kind of logic from prior projects, is we have a pretty good sized contingency allowance for this project. If we see that we're getting towards the end of the project and there's room in that we can start to talk to the contractor about, what could we do to the restrooms, how much would it cost, things of that nature. We'd have some time to maybe look at those.
I would feel more comfortable if we had a pump the brake moment someplace in there,
Right.
just in case we're getting out of hand.
I think that's the logic behind using the contingency. And I've seen that happen on other projects where you have a decent sized contingency, you don't necessarily use it all. You have room to do a few other things that are important to the project. You just don't want to midday come in over budget, right out of the chute. So
Correct.
something to consider.
Well, John, what we're talking about here wouldn't be running that many dollars right now, would it?
Ideally, reality, if we're talking about just removing partitions and maybe fixtures, that's one thing. If we're talking about getting in and redoing tile, things of that nature, that starts to add up to be a little bit more. So I'm certainly open to any and all ideas. I think maybe to get these to be ADA compliant, we would go with potentially widening doors. These are showing as 30-inch doors. So yeah, they would need to be widened. Potentially getting rid of the partition. Well, getting rid of the partitions in each room. And did I already say replacing fixtures? Fixtures need to be at a certain height. So we'd need to replace and maybe raise or lower fixtures, which could have some impact on wall tiles. So, kind of on the spot, it's hard to say how much it would cost. It would overall project, it wouldn't move the needle that much on the overall budget. So really, I think it's, one of those things where we make the call right now. And again, I could go either way, but I think approaching it more in terms of just kind of selective pieces here and there to get as compliant as we can without doing a major facelift is one approach. But I couldn't guarantee, sort of what sort of costs it would get if we really started to get into there and redo tile, fixtures, etc. I would say too, restrooms are usually one of the more costly, areas of remodels as well. We're probably all aware of that. It just costs a lot to do restrooms. So I would hate to reduce the number of fixtures, like I said, just because you have a conference room right next door with potentially a lot of people in there. I do think a lot of those people could just as easily use the restrooms on the first floor. They're fully remodeled, and these would be sort of supplementary restrooms. So making them ADA compliant would not be a bad thing. I didn't help any, I know, on making the decision, but it's just a call whether or not you really want to make these as ADA compliant as we can right now. And what that entails. I think there's a few pieces to that. So I don't know that we have to redo the doors necessarily. I think 30 inches is probably okay if we're just doing our best to make these as compliant as we possibly can. So we can kind of really look through this and see what we intend to do. But I think big picture is the fixtures and the partitions inside the room, just getting those kind of reworked to reduce the number of barriers for use of those restrooms.
But I think we could do this as another alternate too. If we're concerned about cost. But I tend to agree with John. I think if we do minimum work in here, it's not going to move the needle on the project. It's going to be a small piece of the project.
Yeah. I'd say if anything, we just look at kind of a minimal approach to it. Leave the door, take some of the partitions out, and redo fixtures. Leave everything else in there as much as we can.
And I guess I would just soon take care of those doors right away, because you're gonna have a mess, you just want a mess right now.
Good point.
Well, I'm looking at your, you have in here for the item number 30, 3 stall men's accessories, 2 toilets, 1 urinal, at $7,000. Material and labor. So I don't think it is gonna move the needle that much.
Okay.
That thing probably, if we don't do a lot, 20,000 probably.
Well, I would think so.
But I'm nowadays, I can't guess.
I mean, even if it's 30, 40,000, I mean, I don't consider that to be a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned, but since you would have it all opened up anyway, I mean, that's my thing is. The pink tile don't do anything for me, I'll say that.
Well, it don't necessarily have to be tile either.
No, well, yeah, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, there's some nice tile out there that's pretty reasonably priced, I think. That's just my thought.
I think it's worth getting pricing, and it's better to ask now than later. So I just add it on there, find out pricing.
As an alternate.
Yep.
Something else.
Can't do it,
Okay.
can't.
Let's do it as an alternate, and then include tile as well.
I think so.
Well, I suppose some sort of wall covering, don't necessarily have to be tile, whatever you think is most
Yeah,
durable
Yeah.
and reasonable.
right. I'd say most times we do tile, it has to be durable per the code, have a certain level of moisture resistance, things of that nature. So we usually land on tile. So yeah, that's something, if it's in the cards, we'd certainly change the tile finishes as well. If that's the direction, which I would agree. Once you're in there doing this work, you might as well not stop at the tiles. So we could certainly put that in as well. So why don't we move forward with that? New tile, new fixtures, new doors. You'll get a new ceiling regardless. Put that in as an alternate, and then we can reassess it too during construction. You'll get a number on the alternate, and then we'll just see where things sort of pan out. If there's still money left in the contingency fund, then you could certainly still do alternates as well later on in the project.
Okay,
John, let me ask you this question. By doing alternates and delaying decisions on alternates, what's the supply chain look like out there? Is that
It doesn't look good. The duration of this project will be, I think we're talking about a year, maybe more. I don't know. We'll have to wait to get a schedule from the contractor. We're sort of anticipating about a year, but I would say in that year's time, we ought to know the direction that this project will take after a good 6 months into it. A lot of the demo will have been done and things of that nature. So we'll be able to track where the project is going.
I assume the plumbing is probably maybe a 6 to 8 week delay. I don't look for it, but I think the air conditioning, heating, that could be 12 months to 14 months out, because there's a lot of demand for it right now.
Yeah. I agree. So I think if we made that decision, and we gave the contractor a couple months, sort of jump on it, then yeah.
Okay.
And two, and what I've seen as well is the year comes and goes. Most things are done, maybe not everything. You can still do some work past that year. If you wanted to pick a couple of things and still do that work, you could still go back and revisit those alternates. I would say that the contractor has a hard time keeping their price for a year. So if you get a
Exactly.
bid on an alternate at one point, you sort of have to revisit that a year later and just make sure those numbers are still valid. I think the bids are only valid.
So
Contractor puts in a bid, I think it's only valid for 30 days or 45 days, whatever we say, basically. But with prices fluctuating, you want to give contractors sort of a benefit of the doubt. You don't want to hold them to pricing too far out right now. So yeah, the only thing I would say is in the past, what I've seen is after, we come back and revisit things 6 months later, 9 months later, whatever, the contractor has I suppose they have the option of updating their pricing. Really, you can't hold them to their original bid, but that's the only thing.
I think anything you put in as an alternate, you're gonna decide that day when you award a bid, which ones you're gonna accept or which you're not.
Typically, yeah.
Otherwise, you can't hold them to that, I don't think.
Right.
So you think there will be points as we progress here, John, that we can add, subtract, whatever we think, wherever the direction that the current market is taking us?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. I like that you have the contingency in there. I like the 10%. To me, I think that'll likely, knock on wood, still give us room to do some of the alternates later on. I've seen that.
Okay.
I've seen that here with a really, what I would call a messy project at the correctional center here downtown. We ended up, as a county project, we ended up having, pretty decent amount left over. It's just, it covers your bases during the project, but usually after you get through the first few phases, you really know where any concerns might be moving forward. You can reevaluate that with the contractor.
Okay. Very good.
All right, let's move forward with it. Tile, fixtures, partitions, things of that nature. We'll go in there and get that fixed up. So I'm gonna get out of this drawing here and go back to the other. We got about 15 minutes or so. Good talking point though on those restrooms. It's good to have that in there right now, I think. I'm gonna go through the first floor, kind of be available for questions then too. And I don't know that there's a need to go in this most everything. If we'd like to touch on restrooms maybe a little bit more, we certainly can do that. But I think we'll want to reserve some time if it's now or if it's after MEP to talk through the cost estimate. We might not get there before 10 o'clock. So I'm available. We could talk about that after MEP has had a chance to go through their docs. But let's just start over auditor space, new counter, glass, and we're going to relocate all the under counter steel in that space. So that's all the metal cabinets and whatnot will be relocated under those counters. Restrooms, I think what we'll do for the revised restrooms down on the ground floor is very similar to what we would do on these floors. I would say I'm sort of picking up that maybe the finishes, if you want to talk about finishes more on these restrooms, I know we went to a black and white scheme. I would say that there's still time to change some of those finishes to a different scheme if you'd like. Don't feel like you're locked in right now. I think getting that done before bid, for the most part, I think we could do that. Let me know if you have any concerns though about any sort of finishes. I don't want you to feel like you can't change your mind on something like that. So I think whatever happens in these restrooms would happen then down in the ground floor in terms of fixtures, finishes, things of that nature. So we're going to end up with three water closets in women's, 2 and a urinal in the men's restroom, 1 sink, 2 sinks in the women's room. And we'll also have a nice custodial area with a mop sink and those sorts of things. Kind of cruising through, we'll have a coffee, sort of some millwork for, for coffee, fridge, under counter fridge, sink in the auditor's area as well as in the treasurer's area. Right now, what we're showing is an idea of where furniture would go, just so everybody's clear. We don't have new furniture intended to be purchased and provided as part of the project. But I think it shows where desks would be laid out, gives us an idea to show where, new outlets would be located, things of that nature. And so just so everybody's, aware, we have, I think, limited amounts of furniture potentially, but for the most part, I'd say for almost every circumstance, we don't have new cubicles, things of that nature included in the project. We do have also window coverings for the windows included in the project. I've seen projects get to the end and we forgot about window coverings, trying to avoid that. So any spaces where we do go in and do work, we're going to provide, where we remodel, we're going to provide new window shades, roll down window shades.
We have all of them, but we have. Are they gonna ruin the existing ones? Is that why they're in there?
The existing window shades?
Are the existing ones gonna be ruined when you guys work on the ceiling? Is that why?
Yeah,
they're in
so yeah, those would come down and then we would provide new window shades. Yeah. Unless you wanted to keep what you have already, I think that we could do that. They would just have to be protected, I suppose, or maybe taken down and put back up. Is that maybe more of an approach you'd be interested in these areas, is just keeping what you already have?
Very expensive.
Where's the cost on those in here? John?
Let me see if I can find that.
I don't even know what's there, Courtney.
They're just, they're shades, but I mean, they're in decent shape, as far as I could tell.
Sure.
They set inside the window, or, inside the cavity, or they stick out away from what on the wall?
The ones here in the curtain in the room here right now stick inside the cavity.
I'm sure they were new when they got new windows.
It should be fairly easy to protect then, I would think. I don't know that without.
Yeah, we have $3,000 in there. I'm not sure if that's every instance or not, but I think we could consider keeping them on the first floor. The ground floor where the sheriff area was removed and you have the meeting room, I think there, I don't know that you have window shades that you would want to keep for the meeting room. So I would say maybe in the meeting room we provide new for sure, but I'm all for taking them out and just keeping what you have in the auditors and treasurers area.
Okay.
Good point.
Is that the direction you'd like me to go? Take them out of auditor and treasurer?
I would remove them, but I think you might be able to cover them and keep what we have. I do believe you're right though, on the meeting room downstairs, the audio and visual might require more of a blackout shade.
Yeah, with that southern exposure, you could have some pretty intense light on that side. These other areas we're talking about are on the north side, so we could certainly leave what you have. That's no problem.
Okay.
And maybe there's a chance you can take them down and then put them back up again.
For sure, right. So let's go that route. No worries on that. That's an easy fix. Okay. Figure out where I went here. So treasurer's area, I think we've gotten to a really good layout with the treasurer. And so we have three positions for the treasurer. Again, the glass divider. We did moved the printers, I suppose, in this last iteration closer to, into each printers, into each, station. So printers moved forward here, not a big change. Meeting room with the coffee, sort of millwork, storage, not a lot of changes in that room. Driver's license, I think we somewhat recently went back through and we added, basically, just so everybody's aware, these counters, which are very similar to what the treasurer has in their space right now, where they do their testing and take pictures and issue licenses. We have a kind of a 42-inch high counter, and then we have a 88 high 30-inch counter. So we have two of those. Otherwise, I don't think much has really changed on treasurer's area. What I would add, I think last time we talked about doors. Wherever we're doing a big renovation, where materials will be brought in and out of doors for demolition, things of that nature. My intent is to replace those doors. So doors and frames. So this door and frame, restroom, doors and frames, where there'll be a lot of kind of heavier demolition. I don't see a lot of heavy demolition in the auditor's area, but we could certainly, I don't have it to be replaced, but we can replace that door and frame as well if you'd like to. And again, some of this is to set expectations for the project. It's one of those things where some of these things kind of get overlooked a little bit as we're working through drawings, and then sort of towards the end of the project, some questions come up. Well, why did they get one thing and we didn't, or whatnot? So I'd be happy to replace this door and frame as well if you'd like me to. This one will be replaced over here.
And then you're gonna replace the counters on the recorder and assessors also, right?
Correct. Those counters will be replaced as well, correct. And they'll get the glass as well.
Courtney, are all department heads aware that when this goes on, there'll be temporary space for that report at? I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, well, we gotten through the vast majority of the floor plans. We're getting probably, we're pretty close to MEP discussion. And so, second floor, some mechanical work up in the closets, I suppose, in these two areas. And then we talked about the clerk of the court also getting the new counter. So that's the intention as we have it right now. That's the vast majority of the, ceilings will get replaced, but the clerk will also get a new counter and the glass dividers as well.
Nothing will be done with the ceiling in the courtroom, right?
Correct. Nothing on the ceiling in the courtroom, right?
The main courtroom.
That is the one exception, and you're right, 100%. That is the only area I believe that will not have any ceiling work done in it. So with that said, I have a lot of updated interior elevations, things of that nature we can kind of go through. I do want to give Joe and Ryan a chance to walk and talk through their items. And if you'd like, I just don't want to keep you guys too long for this particular purpose. So we can go through that, and then I'd be happy to revisit any architectural questions you have, and maybe do a quick walk through the cost estimate as well. And I would say with any of those items, if you want to table any of those and wait, we can talk about those at another time as well, without making this meeting last too long. But I think we really ought to touch base again on the bid dates and things of that nature for sure. So with that, Ryan and Joe, if you guys are ready to maybe take it from here, I think Dalton's here. Not sure that we have Zach. I know maybe Zach might have wanted to sort of sit in and listen to what's happening kind of, with the HVAC systems as well. So if Zach is interested, now would probably be.
He's here.
What's that?
He's here.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to stop talking a little bit here, turn it over to Ryan and Joe, and I'll stop sharing my screen if you guys have drawings that you'd like to bring up and talk about.
Thanks, John. I'll start sharing my screen here, get working on mechanical.
Brett, do you want to sit up there?
Let me know when you guys are seeing my screen here and ready to get started.
We can see it.
Wait. All right, so I guess just quickly starting with the demo sheets here. As you guys all know, we're going through and completely gutting the existing HVAC system. So here in the basement, we got the chiller and boilers, pumps. Those will all be coming out. There's a few different separate air handling systems that are in this basement that I think are serving the jail and a couple of other areas here in the basement as well. Those are also coming out. I think one of the big areas I did want to talk through here is the dispatch area. Since we're not really doing a whole lot of work in there anymore, I think above the ceiling there is an existing heat pump system. I had planned to have that demoed out and go back in with the VRF system as well. Is that something you guys would want to still demo and go back in with the VRF, or would you want to just leave that existing system alone since we're not really touching that room anymore?
It's kind of got its own air cooling system set up for the communication center the way it is.
What do you do about heat?
That would be that I would have to run off the boiler. So I think you'd have to go in there.
You're gonna have to do something for heat in there, aren't you?
Is this unit only a cooling only unit? I was under the impression that it was doing both.
I don't think so.
Okay. So I guess we can still plan on getting that demoed and then we'll replace it with the VRF system. We'll really just want to make sure we're coordinating, I guess where that work is occurring to make sure we're not, I guess, hindering what the work that's going on in here. We can get to that when we get to the new work plans.
Might be easier for you to that for everything to be the same. But I get disturbing them makes.
Well, they didn't want to go in there because it's too hard to move them somewhere else.
Yeah. Who was gonna do that as a separate project?
Yeah.
Cause they don't wanna do a whole lot of work there.
I'd say unless the current system that we have, unless that does do the area and heating, then I'd say you'd be fine leaving it alone.
If it does the heat.
Right. But if it's relying on that boiler for the heat and pulling that out, then I think we don't even have a choice. You just have to go in there.
I wonder if they even use the heat.
What is providing the heating in this room? Because as far as I know, it's only this heat pump that's doing HVAC in this room. So is there existing heating in there now?
Yes. It's got to come off the boiler. It's got to be vented from the boiler in there. Well, there's no unit. Our controls guy will be here shortly. He'd probably be able to clear this up a little better.
Can we come back to that?
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I guess just kind of thinking about this. I mean, it is in a basement, so you're probably not getting a whole lot of exterior loading onto that room. And then I guess there is a lot of equipment in there, so I would expect it to probably be in demand for cooling most of the time anyway. But yeah, if there is already heating in there and we want to maintain that, then yeah, just keep me updated on what that is. Because I want to say I only knew that there was a heat pump in here serving it. And typically I think those can operate in both heating and cooling mode. So I guess that would be good to confirm. We can come back to that. In this IT room, there is a split system, and I had planned on replacing that. Is that split system something you'd want to keep in there since this room isn't really changing at all, or is that old enough to where you'd want to replace it now?
You're talking about down in my office, right?
No, this is.
We're talking right off the comm center.
Oh, yeah, you definitely want to replace that. It barely keeps up. Sorry.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you walk in there now and the temperature should be around 67, 68. We're running around at least about 70 all the time in there, just because of, through the years, age, plus it's just kind of crowded in there. I'm sure you've seen it, so.
Yep. Sure. I'll make sure that we double check the size of that unit too, and make sure we maybe give you a little bit bigger one too, just to make sure we're not going back in with the same size and hitting the same conditions you're at now and get you a little bit more cooling in there.
Yeah. Understand my hesitation.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess we kind of have a similar situation over in like the IT office area over here. There is a heat pump sitting above that ceiling. I know this area is just getting a full remodel, so that is going to get the new VRF system with it. Any questions on demo with the basement, I guess, or any concerns here?
Yeah, that sounds a little unusual to me too. And I guess I don't know. What kind of heat pumps are those? How do they work? Is it just a unit that just moves?
Yeah, it's essentially just a unit that sits above your ceiling here, and there's a condensing unit outside, similar to what you have at your house, where it's just running refrigerant to it, and then it's providing extra cooling into that space. And I guess that typically makes sense if you have like an IT closet or an IT office. It's just like a split system where you need that extra cooling. So I'd assume the existing system wasn't keeping up in here, and this was added after the fact.
Well, I think our gentleman just walked in and maybe can answer those questions. We're wondering about those heat pumps above the communications center and also over above the IT. Do they provide heat also? We're talking the basement.
Yeah.
I believe they're cooling only. Cooling only. Cooling only. Yep.
Cooling only.
Where's the heat come from?
Is
Just internal heat came from the room.
So there is no.
There's no heat.
I can kind of get that though. I mean,
So
It's all
they
electronic.
generate enough heat themselves.
yeah,
So they're basically cooling all year round. Correct, yeah, there's a cooling over there, all the time.
Yeah, you'll never have to heat
Refrigerator,
you'll never heat the IT room ever.
Or the comm center.
Or the
You don't need
comm center. It has so much. No.
Heat from the equipment.
Okay, so then we could probably get by with that, just a cooling.
Yeah, if it was the dead of winter and we shut off everything in there, it'd be 100 degrees in there. Like it does not matter. It's hot all the time. So
Okay, all right.
I want that.
That's good.
okay. So in this room here, then we want to just keep that heat pump and not go in with the new VRF system. Is that what we're coming to?
That's what I would say.
Yeah, there's no need to bring heat in there.
so that would cut that should cut some cost then, I would think as well, correct? Or not? Or were you counting on that?
I mean, it's kind of just a minimal area. You're not really talking a whole lot of tonnage comparable to the entire system. So probably not a ton of cost savings there, but I'd say for this room, you probably definitely want, if we're going to be fully renovating this area, since we weren't touching this area already, it makes sense to leave that unit. But since we're redoing this area, it'd be good to just get the VRF system in there and have it on the new system. Does anybody know the age of those heat pumps? Is there any desire to have those salvaged so you guys can use elsewhere or somewhere else? Or
Say no.
Want to sit up here?
I can sit here, that's fine. You're good. You're saying they're old enough, you don't think they're salvageable or leave.
You can have my chair.
There's no value there. With those old units.
Well, I don't know.
okay. All right, moving on here.
So do they?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty similar. Go ahead.
Do they talk about the 911, the server room?
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
adding more cooling.
because that's a Liebert unit in there, so we do dehumidification, humidification, it's a full-blown Liebert in that IT closet. So it's I don't know if it's up there. No. We'll scroll down to the bottom right here.
So you're talking about the other IT closet,
Yeah.
in my office.
Yep.
So those air conditioners in there really aren't even necessary anymore, so we don't need to touch those.
Go to this room back in here.
Yeah,
Because that's all over in the jail, right?
yeah, all the IT.
That's all we're gonna move.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like only thing it's doing is just keeping it like 63 degrees in my office. I love it. But
Okay, nope, that's fine.
I actually shut it off last night when I left. Even,
Yeah.
so yeah, that you don't have to mess with any of those.
Okay. All right, moving to the next floor here. I mean, it's gonna be pretty similar story for each floor, pretty much demoing out everything here. We will be reusing some ductwork on the exhaust systems for the restrooms that we weren't touching. I mean, this one, I guess, is kind of up in the air now since we had that discussion a little bit ago with some finishes, but for the most part, we'll probably reuse a lot of this ductwork and just go in with new diffusers, which will be tied to the new fans that are going to go up in the penthouse there. Same story over here. There's a couple of restrooms that are staying as is, so just reusing that ductwork and tying into the new stuff. And then out in the garage, I guess there's a couple of heating water unit heaters that are keeping that heated. So we'll replace those with electric since we're taking out the hot water system. Same story for first floor. These chasers are going to remain like John had mentioned, and we're going to reuse those for our new duct mains. And then for the second floor, like I said, reusing a lot of this exhaust duct work. There is, since we're not really doing a whole lot in this courtroom, planning on reusing these supply ducts that are serving there as well. Is there any desire to replace those grills or just clean them? Or I guess, are we doing any new finishes in there that we want to get those replaced?
I wish we would clean them.
I'm gonna probably clean them like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they need to be.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, and then up in the penthouse, all that equipment's going to come out and be replaced with a new system. Jumping into new work here.
So up in the
Any
penthouse,
questions on demo? I guess.
Yeah, so up in the
Yep.
penthouse, we do have to be careful. When you go through that penthouse, there is a lot of cabling and stuff, like for our cell phone boosters, for the the county radio system, things like that go up through there. So we got to be pretty careful when we're working up there. That's something we need to keep in mind.
That's gonna be quite a bit less equipment up there, going up, back up there compared to what's up there now, isn't it?
Yep, correct. And we'll get to that when we get to the roof plan, but a lot of stuff is going to be on the roof rather than in that penthouse.
Okay.
All right.
Just to
New work plan. So, yep.
back you up a second, you said a lot of the bigger equipment will be up on the roof.
Yep.
So as far as for contractors to work on this equipment, they'll be going up to the roof to work on it.
Yeah. Yep.
The only issue I have is currently we only have one access to the roof for the new jail and here. And it's a ladder, not very feasible for people to have to carry stuff up there to work on anything. Is there you guys don't happen to have anything in the plans for a different route up to the roof, do you?
I'll jump in on that real quick. Looking at this plan, there are windows existing on the south face, we'll say. the penthouse. There's a couple of louvers, which I think we're taking out and replacing. Big picture, we're going to replace a lot of what's on the on that south wall of the penthouse with new insulated metal panels. So there's windows and some grills, and we intend to, I believe the intent is to remove those completely and then put in new metal panels, insulated metal panels. So with that said, there's only 4 feet in clearance from the main roof to the underside of the penthouse roof. There's 4 feet clear. Some of that will be taken up by new roofing. So the roofing, when and if I suppose that gets replaced, I'd say we lose maybe about 8 inches of that 4 feet to roofing, so to speak. So we'd have about 40 inches where we discussed maybe putting in some sort of an access, and it wouldn't be for people to necessarily get through, but enough to maybe open, let's say, a hollow metal door and a 4-sided hollow metal frame, for instance, to pop open, sort of an access door in that area to at least move filters, things like that, on and off the roof. And then you'd still have to get up and down through the access ladder, but you wouldn't necessarily have to be carrying things so much. So you'd still have to carry those up and down from the ship ladder to get up into the penthouse. So there'd still be that as sort of an obstacle. But if anybody likes that idea of adding sort of that horizontal access, sort of door to get to the roof, we can consider doing that.
I think you have to. Yeah, I would think that'd be a great idea.
Okay. Okay, duly noted. Yeah, I'll put that in the plans.
It'd be a holdover. That's probably better going up that ladder in there than going up to the other one.
That one at least says, it's this way with rail, you can hold on and carry something up, as opposed to going up to the rail straight up and down with,
Cause there's not enough room in there to put a stair with it, is there? No. That's a good idea.
Super.
Good to move on.
Move on.
All right, so I guess since we're already on the roof plan, I guess I'll start here and probably just work my way down. So new energy recovery unit, this will be providing fresh air to the whole system, and then your VRF outdoor units will be doing the main heating and cooling for the building for each zone. So I guess anywhere you see a VRI noted, that is going to have its own zone and own thermostat to control that space. It'll be similar to what you have set up over at the new jail there. So this is kind of what the new penthouse is probably going to look like here. So it's mostly just duct mains routed through here, and a new VRI or VRF indoor unit that's going to be serving the courtroom there, and it's going to be backfeeding that ductwork that is existing. And then we also have a couple of inline exhaust fans up in this room that are going to tie into the existing ductwork for each stack that are serving the restrooms. Then we do have a split system condensing unit on the roof over here as well, and then we'll get to that when we get moved to the floor below. I think it's serving the stairway right now to provide cooling for that stairway. So for the most part, we're going in with VRF cassettes. We have a mixture of, I guess, cassette style units, which just sit in the ceiling and they'll provide heating and cooling for the space that way. And then we also have a few ducted units that'll be above the ceiling, and they'll have filters in them as well that'll be need to be changed. And I think, I want to say we have a couple of wall mounted units, but it's mostly the cassettes and ducted units. The one up in the penthouse is a ducted unit. It's actually kind of like a furnace style unit. It's a vertical unit, so it'll pretty much look similar to a furnace and have ductwork off the top and bottom that'll serve the courtroom there. So, and we kind of already talked through our zone plan, I believe, a while back. So that's similar to how we laid out the plans. So it's essentially, like, I can't remember what this area was called, but it'll have its own cassette and own thermostat. The storage room will have its own cassette. Individual offices all have their own unit as well. And then common spaces such as like the corridor here will have its own unit, and then also the toilets and janitor space. And then our ventilation ductwork from that new energy recovery unit is going to be utilizing these chases, like I mentioned earlier, to get down to each floor. So that'll all be part of the first phase in order to get that ductwork in to serve each space. So you have fresh air in each space as they go through the phases. Oops.
In that chase, that's gonna be you're gonna leave the existing ductwork in there, right? Or are you gonna replace?
No, that existing ductwork will come out. It'll come out.
Okay.
So first floor, yeah, I guess divided like the treasurer's offices and the treasurer's office or area and the auditor into two zones, kind of get one along the exterior so you can wash that wall of glass, then one for more of the interior space. So a couple different thermostats associated with that. I guess with this VRF system, you will see these boxes around here. They're called branch controllers, but I guess that varies based on the manufacturer you get. But essentially your refrigerant piping from your outdoor unit, your mains, will come to these branch controllers. And these branch controllers will have up to 16 different taps off of them that will serve your indoor units. And this branch controller is like the brains of the system, that it'll be able to take refrigerant from this unit here and be able to distribute it over here to simultaneously heat and cool the spaces.
Do you have a basis of design on that VRF manufacturer?
We use Mitsubishi. And Train Horizon unit as our. And I want to see you guys. I think you guys got LG over at the jail. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And they are one of our approved manufacturers, I believe. I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure they are.
It makes sense to maybe include LG, since they've got LG in the building already next door.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have them listed in our specs as approved manufacturer.
Okay.
See. Continue to move down here. So I guess I kind of want to talk about the jail space a little bit. And I guess we are showing this with the alternate included, where all the walls are getting demoed out. I know we've kind of talked about this before, about what this might be used for in the future and kind of setting it up HVAC wise for what you guys might need. I guess right now I'm only showing one ducted unit to serve the whole space. Is there any desire to kind of maybe put 2 or 3 units in here that are ducted? That way, like in the future, if you guys do end up going to build this out, you have a little bit better zone control. Or are you guys okay with just having the one in there for now?
Are you gonna have a branch selector box in that area with maybe a couple spare ports for future expansion?
Yep. Each branch controller will have, I think, up to 2 or 3 spare ports on them.
Okay, where's the branch selector box for that area?
This one is over in the right here. I think this is where, Zach, this is your office, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
I think it's going to be in offices at some point.
I don't think that'll happen. No.
Public health or no matter what.
Just think, changes, progress, efficiency, progress. Change takes a long time to. And by the time this project's done, I have a feeling we won't be doing any more projects.
What's the cost difference if that were, let's just say if that were gonna be divided into offices at some point? Between the way you got it drawn now?
I would need to double check that, because it seems like the cost for these units is varying like day by day here. Let me dig into that.
I didn't want an exact dollar amount, but would it be more expensive to foresee?
Yeah, it'd be more expensive to have 3 separate units, because I mean, you're adding a unit, but then along with that, you're also adding ductwork for that unit. You're adding grills, you're adding power, you're adding refrigerant piping back to that branch controller. So
Leave it as is then probably. So I said that's spare ports on branch selected. And we've got the option to zone it later on, to do it later on. Leave it as is.
Who knows who better than-
So what about the space that's occupied right now by the boiler? What are you planning for that? I mean, just in case we put a floor right on this level right here. In that space.
Right, this room right here, is that what you're talking about?
Oh,
Nope.
next
Right
to it,
next to it,
The basement. Oh,
by them stairs.
right there,
Yeah, so
that space.
The boiler
right
room
there.
here?
Yeah. I mean, there's a possibility there could be a floor put in there and more office space, I guess, is an option at some point. Are you planning anything for that?
I had planned, I guess right now for this room, I guess I was treating it as just like an extra storage room since there wasn't anything going on there and we were just taking out all that existing equipment. So right now, I just have it shown in the basement level of this floor, but just one ducted unit that is conditioning that space. And then I also have the branch controller box for the basement located in there as well. But if you were to go through and add a floor there, you should be able to have, I mean, you'd have to accommodate some of this ductwork that I have routed there to get to the lower level to serve that for ventilation. But I'd assume you'd be able to tie into this branch controller box and add a couple of zones that way.
Okay, just so we got the capability of doing that down the road.
Sure. All right, and then I guess down in the Board of Supervisors room, I did divide this up into two different zones since we did have that partition wall as an alternate going in. And I guess either way, it'd probably be a good idea to have this still partitioned since this is kind of where all the seating area is. So that'll be on its own zone, and then this will handle the desk space up here and the podium area. And that way, if you do have that partition ever closed, if that does get selected, then you have control on both sides of that partition. And moving down to the basement. So this will change back to and then we got a similar layout where we have a cassette for each one of these offices for individual control, and then ducted units for in these storage rooms and in the old boiler room, and then new split system to serve that IT room. And then I guess this area is going to stay pretty much as it is now, right? Is that essentially a storage room, correct?
For now.
For now.
Okay.
Kind of back you
I
up
don't
again on
think-
the communication
Yeah,
center
yeah.
rooms. I think you suggest we pull what's in the communication center out for there and put new in.
I would, yeah.
So it's all the same system.
That unit's gotta be 15+ years old.
like I said, it's not keeping up at all.
That's for the IT closet. I'm talking for the actual, the dispatch area.
Oh, the actual,
That,
okay, I get you, okay.
You know, because that's got a condenser unit in the boiler room now. That's,
I would not keep that, no,
That heat pump?
yeah. I mean, it's 15 years old, it's gonna be 16, 17 years old by the time this project goes through
No one be looking at replacing it anyway.
and.
But then we gotta replace ceiling. And that's the issue we have is moving them around. That's why we're thinking about doing that.
You could put in a new heat pump in there.
Huh?
You could put a new heat pump.
Yeah,
Regardless, you have to replace it someday anyway, so it's gonna be an inconvenience at some point.
so is it able to put that
Figure it
heat
out.
pump in without changing ceilings and for working it?
That's what,
Putting another heat pump in, or would that be?
did they just add it to the VRF or do they not want to put them in the VRF for? backup reasons or?
Well, because we have to move all the ceiling and work around them. We have to move the consoles and all that.
While it's under construction.
At some point, they're gonna have to do that anyway, when they replace that unit in a few years, probably. So, the lifespan of the unit's gonna be 20 years. So they're already getting close to that.
Did you guys say that this area was going to be handled as a separate project? Is that what you guys had mentioned earlier?
That's
Yeah,
what we
that's
were talking, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not, it doesn't.
So I guess if that's the case, I mean, and it's handled, I guess, I don't know, in the future here, I mean, there will, like we kind of talked about it before, that we will have extra ports on this branch controller to where when you do go through and hit that area, you can switch it over to VRF at that time.
Yeah. Good.
Because what they're talking about is gonna take a lot of money to keep moving them counts as well. That's why we were thinking about doing seven.
You know, you could remodel the space that's storage at some point. And then move them over there.
That's what
And
that's
then
what
do
John
that.
was kind of talking about. And then,
Yeah, but you could still do that later too.
Sure.
yeah,
All those ceiling cassettes aren't real intrusive when you put them in. You're basically putting it in a 30-inch square opening in the ceiling. So it's not like you're tearing ductwork out, if you just go with the basic ceiling cassette in the ceiling of it. And it's not like you're tearing up the entire room.
They have two consoles in there, a farther one and this one over here. So I mean, if they could get it down to an area that they're working, work over here. I guess basically what me and Tyler are saying is you're going and doing this whole building and you're just gonna leave this just because in my opinion, I would do it all. I mean, yes, it would probably be an inconvenience to them, but it's gonna be an inconvenience in 2 or 3 years when that heat pump goes out. So,
Yeah, and you're gonna have to pay for more labor, having somebody come back and work again, might as well get it done.
that way, you know, you're getting the same material, the building's all gonna be the
but you're
same.
talking about tearing the ceiling up. That's the problem.
But what Todd just said is not really that invasive is what they're making it sound.
Well, how long does it take to take the ceiling out in that space? A couple hours.
But all you're doing is modifying the grid in the middle of the room.
So you wouldn't, you're saying you wouldn't have to take both ceiling out?
No.
just-
Top ceiling tiles, all you're
No,
doing.
you would not.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Work on stuff, you know?
Is that ceiling tile down there?
Yep. The only thing that would be different is if you just did that area, I think I was not here earlier, but are you guys talking about redoing the whole ceiling tile in the whole building? So that would be your only thing. If you just left theirs the same and just did the area where the unit was going, then they're right up to snuff with the heating and cooling system.
Is that possible, John? And Brian?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple ways to look at it. If I'm right, I think if we redid everything in that room, let's say we demoed everything and kind of redid it all, that's one scenario where the ceiling would likely need to come down and be replaced. However, you know, like we're talking now, if we're just replacing one heat pump, that's a different conversation, and likely the ceiling could remain. I don't know if there's anything else in there, Joe or Ryan, you know, that would need to in the future be replaced, I suppose, if that room was ever to be remodeled. But yeah, I think what it sounds like is, you know, you go in there and pop in a new heat pump right now, just to get that temperature control, you know, a little bit, and also as part of the project, get your system updated. But I think next steps would be to potentially, you know, consider this project overall in terms of emergency communications down the road. Where will they move potentially into if that's needed? And maybe they would move north into that open space that has, you know, new HVAC, new ceilings, et cetera. And they could potentially grow into that space in the future. And then, and if that does happen, they could go back and remodel, you know, the space that they're in. So it seems like just replacing the heat pump right now in that room might be a good option.
Just the same. For what was on it.
So that your room needs to be on the emergency generator and it's not. If you put on the VRF, it will not. Would the HVAC in that room need to be on the emergency generator? Because if you put it on the VRF, then it most likely will not be.
That's a good question.
Joe or Ryan, I don't know if you guys
Need
want
to
to
be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I can probably let Ryan speak to that, but I'd assume that would want to be. But I mean, if trying to think, I guess if that system is on the BRF system, then that whole BRF system that's serving this floor, since they're all part of that same system, would need to be on emergency power, unless you do a separate heat pump system, I guess, just for this communication office. That's kind of its own separate system doing that.
That's what we gotta do, is put another new heat pump in there down the road.
You want an emergency generator, you're gonna have to, or you have to put the entire VRF for that floor on the emergency generator. I don't know if it'll handle that. No, you probably waste money doing that.
I say let's leave it existing there, and we'll replace it. Because it's on emergency generator. Does that make sense to you? Why don't we do that? Let's leave it the way we are. Leave existing heating pump. This is my suggestion. And then we'll replace it because that way it's always on the emergency generation.
When are you gonna replace it? Are you gonna replace it now, so it's new? Or are you gonna wait till it gets done? I mean, do you want them to include that in the bidding? Because he's saying that it's getting up there. Yeah.
Zach, doesn't the emergency generator, the new one we put in, doesn't it carry the whole load of the jail and the current building?
What was on the generator in the courthouse is what got moved over onto the new generator.
So then the entire complex can be handled by the new generator.
Not the
I don't think, there's just a few panels that make in the basement that are an emergency generator.
The whole courthouse was never on the generator.
Okay,
Just that
Certain
room. So like Dalton's area, Town Center, I think there might be a couple.
Just select areas.
okay, so
By the old jail.
if the comm center's there, then most likely this heating and cooling, no matter whether we replace it or leave it, will be on, most likely on the new generator.
Correct.
That's why we're saying we probably should just leave it as a heat pump in that area. Now, the question is, we're talking here is whether should we replace it now at the same time with a new heat pump?
Well, how far away are we? I hate to open up this can of worm, but how far away are we from adding another new console in that 911 center?
Close.
Huh?
Close.
Okay, so now let's follow me through here. When we do the remodel and we remove Carrie from the equation, that office space, would we not maybe put another console in there? Then if we ever did any remodeling from that point on, then that would give us an out that would not be underneath construction.
I know Jason's like eventual plan was to move all those desks back where Courtney's equipment's at. He'd like to have 3 stations back there.
Moving north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have any desks there, where they're at right now. All 3 would be located back on the north wall there. And they would have that whole area there.
And what would go in there existing right now?
You're gonna put in a new bathroom.
So that would leave room for the bathroom and everything else. So that's just talking to Jason. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
but that was kind of my understanding what he wanted. So
Yeah.
That's a big project. So I think that's why you guys said.
Yeah, that's why
we
we-
need to do that on its own. It's gonna be-
I think that's a whole separate project myself.
It is, and it will be an expensive one.
Yeah, because moving stations like that, they have, it's not just like there's just a network connection to them. We have, state radio and everything else that's going in there, so it's not gonna be easy. And there'll be a lot of moving parts and a lot of contractors will have to touch it to make it happen, so.
So are we better off? But you think this heat pump is on its last leg?
It's here nearing the end of its life cycle. I think we
It's
should,
getting to the end, yeah.
I think we should include it, replacing it now. Instead of waiting until, because you're saying by the time this project's done, it'll be 17, 18 years old.
By the time we decide to even do
Well-
the other project.
If we replace that heat pump right now and then we leave the communication center as a standalone project down the road. And what you're saying is there's enough, that we could also put a VR in that north area as we remodel them, right?
That's what he said, yeah.
So then I'd say we just replace the heat pump now at this time.
But we got two experts saying do it,
Do
so I
it.
think we'd be silly not to. You guys will be laughing at us in 5 years.
So
Okay, so replace this heat pump then, is what I'm hearing.
That's an office that you.
Okay.
If the heat pump goes
And
out,
And then-
it's
and then-
bottom.
we've got enough capacity down the road that we can expand in that north part with the new system, right?
Right, so I guess that was gonna be my next question. So you guys would be looking at moving them here in the, what we labeled dispatch, right?
Eventually, yeah.
So we would need extra
So
air
do-
conditioning there.
Okay, so yeah, so essentially size this unit for
Expansion.
expansion. And then I also had a separate split system in here mounted on the wall. And I guess that was kind of the idea that we were gonna have for backup in there. So I guess the VRF would be doing your main cooling of that space. But if the VRF went down, this split system would be on emergency power to help cool that space. But I guess that could be something that would be done if and when they move up to that area.
Sound good?
Okay.
Anything else in this area? I think that makes all sense.
Real quick, do we know what the capacity is just in general for the generator for the courthouse? It's probably not the entire courthouse gets put on generator, by default. I would imagine it's maybe certain locations. I don't know, Ryan and Joe, if you guys can answer that. How much,
That,
10% capacity for the courthouse or, just
Yeah,
kind of.
I'm not sure off the top of my
Plugins
head.
or something like that it grabs?
Yeah, I couldn't tell with the new generator and the size of it, I couldn't tell you. I would say maybe it's probably, as far as how much is left on the new generator, you just want to know how much of the courthouse is actually.
No, yeah. I know it sounds like the generator feeds quite a bit of the jail. So, and it was put in as part of that project. What capacity does it have to give up to the courthouse, let's say, based on, how much it's giving to the jail, how much extra capacity does it have to kind of hand over to the courthouse? Is it like just selective light fixtures, or is it maybe potentially a room, like the
On center, obviously.
Yeah.
IT
My desk. I
and
don't know why.
a few outlets in a few different offices.
You're important to us.
And then all the stuff down in like the old jail and the sheriff's office, they're kind of.
Yeah, that's probably all on it, yep.
Used right.
Yeah, the old jail, old sheriff's department.
Is that something that would be helpful to know that? How much?
Seems that way. Just so you have a general idea of how much, I don't know how to quantify it, but let's say you wanted to put communications on backup and you wanted to put IT and maybe some selective outlets and or light fixtures, things of that nature. It'd probably be good to just have a general idea of that. And then we're we're not doing anything to the elevator, but eventually, and it might not warrant it on this size of a building, but, you know, I think it would just be good to know down the road, you know, were you to go through and update spaces, do different things, what do you sort of have to work with, you know, based on how much capacity the jail's taking and sort of how much is back feeding into the courthouse.
There's like safety lighting and
Battery
emergency
backup.
lighting.
Battery backup. You get that.
The bathrooms are there. The lights went off.
Actually. You get somebody to a load test come in on the weekend or something?
Well, would, a previous architect, no?
Shine had with the specs.
We can start there anyways.
You want to check them?
Give them a call.
John Zach's gonna check with Shive and see if they can come up with something, have an idea.
Sure they know, they've got that spec on it.
Yeah, they think they should have an idea.
You guys want me to call them?
No,
No, I think it's best you and I do not. call.
best you do not.
Or do we have that information on the documents that we got from Shive Hattery?
Jail documents.
Yeah, the jail
Might be
documents.
included in-
I'd like to think that they're probably already would be in there, what the size of that capacity is of that generator.
Yeah, what I have the original blueprint for the whole building. I'm sure you guys do too. Wouldn't it say it in there?
Not the original.
Or the one Shive Hattery sent us rather after.
Yeah, I think it might be in those docs. Ryan, I guess I don't know if that's something we could kind of just look at and know. Maybe we could help out. I think otherwise maybe Tony of Adding Construction might be able to get you set up with, you know, the installer of the generator and the switches and things of that nature. And maybe that's another route. you
No,
can
but
go
it's not.
through the contract.
No.
Yeah, we're not trying to add on.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, if we got additional capacity, are there something that is?
Okay, well,
Could.
I can talk to Tom too and see if he knows anything on that.
Okay, yeah, I have that in the overall notes. So if we could touch on that, are we good on this floor? I think looks like we're gonna upgrade the HVAC, I suppose, in that north area, and then I think where we sort of left it, and it's likely a good idea is to look at the communication room expansion, movement, et cetera, as a different project, and at least get it set up right now to potentially move into that north area, do what we can now. But, you know, I think anything that's happening in that existing room would potentially be demoed, you know, down the road. So I don't know if it's worthwhile to put a lot of money into that space right now, sort of knowing that there's things that need to happen with communications down the road. So if we're good there, maybe, I don't know too, where you're at, Joe, with going through the docs, but maybe we can circle back and revisit that, you know, later on. But for now, it looks like we've got things sort of set up.
Okay, yep. I got piping here, but we can kind of quickly go through this. I mean, it's essentially just the piping side of the refrigerant piping side of the VRF system. Just kind of showing a general route of where this piping will go. So not a whole lot of new information on this one. We do have some new gas, or I guess we are tying to the existing gas system to get up to the roof for that new energy recovery unit, and then we're tying into the existing water heater as well, or the new water heater. I'll just kind of quickly go through these plans here. We're going to take a look through them. Not a whole lot of new information, like I was saying. And that kind of gets us to schedules and detail sheets. So I guess, do we want to move over to plumbing here real quick? I don't want to take up too much time, so that way Ryan and Vinny have some time to talk electrical and technology. Any questions on HVAC before I move on?
Real quick, you just brought up the water heater, replacing that. Is that going in the same spot it's currently at, or?
Yep. So I guess I'll get to plumbing here.
Sorry.
So quick demo sheets. I guess you have water heater, and I think there's a circ pump in there. So water heater and circ pump will be demoed, and then we'll be going back in with new. I'll just jump to the new work plans. It'll be easier to look at. So going in the same location and then tying into the existing piping. Trying to reuse pretty much reusing a lot of the existing piping that's throughout the building. Just redoing a little bit in a couple of locations where some walls moved. Particularly in this area down right below the new Board of Supervisors room. I'll go up to that floor. They were originally going down a chase, which if we looked at the demo sheets, that'd be easier to tell. They're originally going down a chase that was in this wall that is getting demoed. So we need to relocate those pipes into a new chase over here. So that's why there's a little bit more rework on the floor below, and then adding the sink there. And then there's the sink getting added in that meeting room. But the majority of the work is going to be in this first floor restroom here. I guess kind of going back to the mechanical room. I guess I did see a note, I guess, about the backflow preventer. Is there one, and are we adding one, or are we replacing the one that's there? I couldn't find notes that were on that. What needed to happen on that.
The only backflow preventer in the building is on the closed loop makeup station.
Okay, so there's not a backflow on the domestic side of things into the building.
Oh.
Okay, and we were gonna, I guess, look at adding one as part of this.
This is code requires it.
Yep. Okay. Good to know. And then I guess a little bit of piping or a little bit of plumbing up on the second floor here. Taking a cold water line up to that penthouse and having a hose bib on the roof there, because I don't think there is one right now, but that'll be convenient for you guys for cleaning off those new rooftop
There
units
is
there.
water up there. There is water up there though, because that's where the makeup station to the closed loop is. On the north side of the.
It's in this
mechanical
penthouse
room.
already.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess if that whole system's getting demoed, then we could probably just reuse that existing water that's there. That's the new hose bib. Okay, and then here's our enlarged plans of the new restroom remodel, I guess, on the first floor. And Zach, I did send you a few questions on these just to confirm, but toilet to be wall hung. Did you want manual or sensor flush on those?
So you guys, COVID and all that, do you want stuff where people don't have to touch for the future, or? I generally have more issues with the sensor stuff, but if that's what's gonna be in the future, then might as well do it now.
What's that again?
Sensor versus flush.
I have a lot of customers that have the same issue with the sensors. But. I don't know.
That's what it is. Just like anytime you add technology, you're gonna have issues.
Absolutely.
So it is what it is.
But if you're flushing the toilet, you're actually supposed to go wash your hands, so
Right.
just.
For the whole COVID thing, yeah.
We need a sign that says that.
Like at the restaurant.
Yeah.
everyone is.
Sorry, I don't know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah,
I would assume the manuals are less expensive. That would be.
And they have,
More dependable.
they have systems now that you can add to the manual if you want to down the line.
you know, if it's
They
easier
clip
for
on.
you, let's just go with the manual. That's
Manual,
Manual, okay. Same with the faucets in there.
One, two.
Yeah, manual's better.
That's what I think too.
Yeah,
That's
I hate the one where you're gonna-
Yeah, wave it and then last for 3 seconds when you're sitting there waving.
Manual.
Manual.
Okay. And I think the last question I have is PEX piping. I guess, do you have any concerns with having PEX piping in this building? I guess we typically allow it for just individual drops to fixtures. None of the mains will be routed in that, just drops to the sinks and just from the main to the units. So I guess I didn't know if you had any issues with doing it that way.
No, Texas is the future.
PEX A or B?
I'd have to double check. I think can't remember off the top of my head. Call PEX in our schedule here. It's in our spec. I have to double check. Any questions on plumbing? Anything I missed?
About as far as not necessarily plumbing, but the paper towel machines, toilet paper, roll, like, is that something you're gonna let me do, or do you guys have?
Yeah, that's part of what I'm doing. Zach, I think we wanted to coordinate with you. I know, I think we have some general items picked out. I think you were going to touch base with me regarding, and I know, usually with paper towels, things like that, you'll sometimes get dispensers from the vendors and whatnot. So we just want to make sure that we have that coordinated with you. If you want to maybe send me a list of things that you want in terms of toilet paper, soap, things of that nature. Otherwise, we can spec around, what we normally do otherwise. So,
Yeah,
give me a
generally, I keep it the same for the whole building usually, so.
right.
Did you do anything with the water fountains at all?
Yeah, so it shows up on this plan, but that water fountain will be replaced with, is that a bottle filler as well?
No.
Yeah, I think we have a bottle filler called out for that
Okay.
as well. Yep, but I think it's just that
Bottle
one.
filler. Then we're gonna take the old tile off the wall, which is in pretty rough shape, and replace that with some new solid surface material.
I have one plumbing question. Are we addressing the water quality coming into the building, the calcium issue, the hardness of the water?
We are not as part of this project.
Okay. Well, I know it's expensive, but I also know chemicals to clean and value of what's happening to the plumbing over a period of years is also have a value too. So
How's it going?
You want us to dig into that a little bit and look at options?
well, I don't know what a whole building system would entail. I assume it'd be fairly pricey.
Why can't we just do water?
The jail put an RO system in when they built that for I think it's only ran for certain plumbed through to go to certain areas.
You know, you don't need RO for your toilet.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something we could do for the water fountains. Maybe some of the sinks, depending on where those locations are.
Well, you know as well as I do, Zach, that calcium builds up inside all the faucets. It makes it a little bit more of a cleaning issue.
You never drink the coffee here. If I could show you some of the coffee pots I tore apart. I mean, it's
No-
full that
no-
much of
And
calcium.
No
that's
doubt.
why we have offices that buy their water. You know, because.
I bring my water in there. I
water
bring
tastes-
cases
the
of water.
tastes
You
good.
know,
So, I mean, it has a value to it.
Mhm.
I would like to see a number put on a system, just out of curiosity's sake. That would also give us I don't know, Courtney, do you know how many people have bottled water brought in through Culligan?
We don't have any Culligan, it's all.
Echo water.
Okay. Yeah, don't call him cold, man. He don't like that.
3 or 4. You have one, I have one, I think
Carrie has one.
she's Culligan.
Ashton has one.
Like, 6 maybe.
Treasurer's office has one.
So there would be some value there, but that's not a lot of money. But
I know an operation has one too.
It adds up.
It does add up.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I remember I
just
asked
bought
that
a
question
new
on
drinking
payables, remember?
thing. I'm not.
But it makes sense, if they can't drink our water, then they can have water.
So I had to buy a new one, it's like $40. So I'd be using that.
well, I would like to see it at least investigated, but dig into it a little bit, put a number on it.
That's a good idea.
Okay, we can dig into it. I guess, is it more of a concern for just like the drinking side of things, or is it for like saving like fixtures, or I guess, because I mean, I know on those electric water coolers, the bottle filler stations, those come with like integral filters that you can change out. And we can also add them for certain areas, like in the break rooms, I guess, if you're filling up coffee pots and stuff like that too. We can have inline filters on those areas to help out with that.
How well did that one work for the sheriff's office old break room? We used to have one on there, remember, right? So it's just, our worry is it's so damn hard that we were not gonna be able to even knock it down with a filter,
Right.
Do you know what it goes to in the jail? Sheriff's office, any idea what that one's used for? And maybe we consider just adding something similar to that system. I mean, I've seen water softeners in buildings like, this size that are they're kind of like regular residential water filters, only they're, twice as big or 3 times as big or whatever. So there's just a scale of water softening. I don't know. Is there a different thing then that just sort of takes the hardness out of the water? Is that something different than a water softener, or is there?
Yeah, so they actually have like 3 big water softener units for the whole jail.
Get the pillows with salt?
The resin tank's probably back.
Cold it does, I know.
Oh,
So, and then they actually went in, they had those 3 big units for the whole jail, and then they actually had an RO system going to the jail kitchen. And and I'd have to double check with the sheriff, but a few different other areas. It's not going all over the building. It's not going, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 different areas where the RO system's flowing to.
Probably the drinking fountains and anywhere coffee pots are filled or things like that.
The kitchen maybe, yeah.
And the question is the plumbing system set up to be able to differentiate where the water kind of goes after it comes in? Can you tell it to only go to the drinking fountains,
Yeah.
that sort of thing?
That's a good.
That
good
was what I was
point.
gonna bring up, John. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the whole building, I mean, you're not gonna be able to do that without changing the whole cold water
Indeed.
system and kind of
So,
taking the
it's-
softened water to the individual fixtures that you want softened.
so it's an all or nothing thing,
Right.
pretty much.
Unless you guys talk about putting those filters on,
In line.
yeah, each water fountain or anything like that.
Like a residential
Right.
application.
which I guess is better than nothing.
You have a softener here at all.
Yeah. It just doesn't do none.
Yeah.
Cold can come
But it's gotta,
test it
it's
every
gotta
year.
help, it's gotta.
Yeah, yeah.
For the piping and stuff like that.
Right.
But Zach's gonna ask in the toilets, at least every day. 'Cause it builds up quick.
So what you're looking for is a price for basically a whole building, I think, water softening system. Is that, because RO only goes to the kitchen. I'm sure that's probably for a different reason. But if we're just talking water softener, that, you know, that's another thing. And I don't know, you know, if Bluestone could get a kind of a building cost to get a water softening system. And again, it's one of those things where it seems to me like they're large resin tanks and, you know, large salt. I've seen them before in other buildings. So I can't imagine what the cost is on them, but I think it's just kind of like a residential system on steroids, you know, so to speak. So
Yeah. You said, but you have operational cost goes with that too, so.
yeah, keeping it running. Is that
Zach,
something?
Zach, what do you think? Zach, what do you think? Because you're the one's gonna have to change the inline filters if they're there, or you're gonna want to have to deal with the whole building softener. That's a maintenance thing either for you, either way.
We currently do have a water softener for the building.
But it's still, it
doesn't-
doesn't get enough of the lime out of the water to.
Correct.
It just,
So
the
big
water
resin
tastes
tank?
bad.
Big resin tank, yeah.
How much salt do you use? Hundreds of pounds. a day.
Yeah.
And the water just tastes bad.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it
how-
doesn't look
how do you
bad,
feel?
it just tastes bad.
Colgan does it. They've been on them.
So
Contract for a
cycle
year,
where
way
they
before I
don't
started
test.
even, yeah. You know, he just comes and throws his bags in whenever he's set for a schedule.
I just think it'd be nice to have some type of a system where the sinks were at that you might use in your break room. In the drinking water, that it's either RO or something. that would
So
taste better.
localized, it probably be in line,
Maybe, or you could run
You
an
have
RO
an
system
RO
and have
system
it
in your
just go
house?
down.
just soft water.
So we have an RO system and Eco Water comes and changes those filters on a regular basis.
I do it myself. It's
And
not-
Yeah, you can do that.
yeah, he just lets you know when he's coming.
Yep.
You know, I mean, he could go around the whole courthouse.
And couldn't you
Change
put an
them out.
RO system in the courthouse and just have it go to the certain things that you wanted to,
Right.
like certain drinking fountains and be that?
Yeah.
That'd be
That's kind of what
refunded.
you're saying where it's.
When the water comes in, it doesn't know where to go.
Go and just to do that thing, you'd have to reform it.
But they're talking about bringing PEX anyways to the new pictures and stuff, so that's gonna get rid of a lot of those connections. If they're gonna be replacing PEX, right? So
I
it's
don't
all,
know
it's
how
all,
much they actually are.
you know, it's already PEX, and you can do whatever you want with it from there.
We can just keep buying water.
Well, I mean, it's.
Supporting a local vendor,
Yeah,
so it doesn't
you either have Eco Water can give you the water system the way you have it now, or you have them come in and change the filters. You know, and then you don't have to change the water. Not to have an extra water line for the
I think,
RO system or anything.
I think you're approached down to two different ways too, right? You could go install them just on individual things, or you could have them do it where it comes in, it would be doing the whole building. So, I mean,
And the difference there, you have to have two water lines and kind of to this same, correct?
Yeah, if you're gonna do one RO and one regular,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there's some expense to that. But
yeah. I don't know. I guess, I don't know if we're really answering the questions or not. I don't think we are. So.
It sounds like it's out of the scope of this project.
It just hears us BS and.
Well, the only thing here could be the plumbing. Have an RO system.
I guess honestly, to me, just running an inline filter to the water fountains would be huge. I'm always scraping hard water out of those things and,
Especially if we're gonna have a new one.
and if, and honestly, if we did have filters going to that, people like could still eliminate echo then. I mean, people could go fill up their water barrel bottle.
Well, and you could fill up for your coffee.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't think would that be a huge expense, just having maybe those inline filters running into the water fountains?
The one that we're replacing here that comes built in.
Oh, okay, that's even.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I think if you take
Other-
the
other
spout off
fountains-
the,
other
take the spout off the
fountains
water
are
fountain, I think you'll see the filter in there and just replace that. So that is something to consider doing that, and then maybe systems, locally where you really, get your water at sinks, different, locations throughout the building. You do a under the cabinet sort of distill or RO system kind of locally to a few areas. Maybe that's something to consider.
John, I think probably in interest of time here, maybe I think you're right. Maybe any sink or water fountain that we're addressing during construction should have a localized RO system installed. Does that make sense?
I think it does to me. I know in past projects where we've run up against this, I think there's been an option to do the little RO system underneath the sink and then have a separate tap just for water. So if you're washing hands and things like that, you don't get the RO water, but there's a little, kind of separate tap for filling up, drinks or coffee pots, things of that nature. I'd let Bluestone, I'd kind of defer to those guys for specifics on that, but I think I have seen that in the past where if you want points to be filtered, you run it through RO and you just it's just cold water and it just goes to, one little spout. That way you're not using RO water for washing your hands and things like that.
Right. And maybe that's the way the avenue we should address this anytime.
Yeah, and that's
something
the
new.
amount of time you have the duration of the filter changes and things of that nature too. So if we're just talking about drinking water, that doesn't solve the entire building. I know Zach for all the other fixtures in the rest of the building, it just doesn't solve that. But I think that's a different question altogether. If there's a system to filter all the water coming into the building to get rid of all that lime scale, I think that's another issue. I don't know if Bluestone has any opinion on kind of a direction to go. I think maybe one approach is to just do a few local where we have the coffee stations, we have the water fountain, do filters in those areas or RO, but the rest of the building would have to be addressed at maybe a later time.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you guys are. We'll dig into those couple options for those areas.
It's a tough question. Any ballpark on filtering an entire building through a water softener?
Yeah.
I guess I don't have one off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, don't expect you to, but maybe we can get that
Sorry.
and just provide that.
Yeah, I can ask around and see, but yeah,
Just to
For
top
the
it off my
safety,
head.
for this, you guys, we gotta keep moving, because there's some people that got other places to be.
Yep. I think I need to move over to electrical and technology, let those guys go for a bit. So
Thank you.
thanks, everybody. I
Thanks.
appreciate it. Ryan, I'll give you the screen.
Perfect. All right, just let me know when you guys can see my screen.
We see it.
See it.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna kind of follow the same path as Joe. We're gonna start down here in the basement. All the existing lighting is gonna be coming out. All the existing fire alarm is gonna be coming out. let's see, all the existing mechanical and plumbing equipment that Joe is taking out that has a power connection will be coming out. We're going to be removing some electrical panels in this mechanical room. Any sensors will be coming out, switches, low voltage data, everything, basically everything's coming out down here. You guys have any questions on this area to start with?
Yeah, so I heard you're replacing lighting. Are you gonna be doing like an IP-based system like Touche or?
No, we're just all new LED lighting.
That's what I need to know, because when we did the new jail, like they put, the Touche system, which ended up falling under my belt to have to work on it. So, because everything's all ran on Ethernet, even the light switches. So, all right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
They ran Ethernet.
Yeah, even the light switches have Ethernet to them. It is not electrical, but when there's an issue,
Yeah, that is cool.
you don't call an electrician, you call me.
Yep. Okay, then heading up to the ground floor, kind of follows suit the same thing, ceiling fans coming out, again, lighting coming out, anywhere where a wall is being demoed, receptacles, switches, low voltage data will be coming out, projector in the room that you guys are currently in will be coming out, any cameras, security cameras will be coming out. Basically a lot of the same stuff, lighting, power, and systems will be coming out. And then obviously any mechanical equipment where Joe has mechanical equipment that is coming out will be removed as well. I believe we are just kind of leaving the garage for the jail as is, if you guys are all right with that. Just an added cost that really isn't needed to be modified is kind of how I looked at it. But if there is mechanical equipment in there that's getting modified, we will follow suit with that. So it's basically lighting will stay, power will stay, but it's just fire alarm and any mechanical equipment in those areas will be redone. Kind of the same thing for the vacated jail area as an alternate. So if it's accepted, everything in there will be taken out and then modified as needed. So that's kind of the ground floor in a nutshell. Anything for me on this? If not, I'll continue on to the first floor, unless anybody has anything. Okay, again, kind of the same thing on the first floor. All the lighting will be coming out, ceiling fans, anywhere where a wall is demoed, switches, receptacles, cameras, exit signs. We are removing all the electrical panels. I believe there's 2 on each floor. So there's 1 here and 1 here, and those will be replaced with new panels to be able to handle what is going on and also give you guys some flexibility to add to those in the future. That is the first floor. And then kind of the same thing on the second floor. The areas we're not really touching. This is a large courtroom, so those only thing going on in there are those cabinet unit heaters, so the power will be removed from those. We will be removing lighting, fire alarm. I don't believe any walls are being modified, so power will pretty much stay as is. So it's just going to be lighting, switches, and then fire alarm, and then ceiling fans will get removed in this area. And then finally up to the penthouse and roof, we're going to remove the lighting up there. Just it's kind of lacking right now, and with all the equipment being taken out, we're going to put some new lighting in there, just kind of brighten that space up for whatever feature use will be needed up there. So the exhaust fans, the heaters, pneumatic control system, all of that, power connections will be removed up there along with the fire alarm as well. So that's kind of the demo sheets in a nutshell. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the demo side.
So I noticed you said you're gonna be pulling out like existing access points and cameras. Some of that equipment is gonna be reused. Like for instance, I just spent like a lot of money on brand new cameras I'll have mounted there probably by the time you start working. I don't want those just ripped down and thrown on the floor. I mean, they're expensive cameras. They're $1,000 a piece. So
That's correct, Dalton. I mean, those cameras there will be a note on there for those cameras and those WAPs to be taken down during construction and put back up in those existing locations.
that's that alleviates my concern. So thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you, Vinny. All right, so now we will start again in the basement with the lighting. I know this is kind of an older set, but it kind of sounds like the dispatch area and the communications area, that's going to kind of be left as is. So all that lighting will stay. This is kind of needs to be modified on my end. We're going to down to the restroom. We're going to do some new can lights in there with some occupancy sensors, and then wall mounted lighting for above the sinks. And then basically everywhere else in these offices and the corridors, we're going to do like a 2x2 LED troffers in those areas, just to kind of brighten the space up a little bit. Then this far room down here, I think it's kind of a storage room right now. We're going to do some LED strip lighting in there. And then kind of the same thing for like the storage. There's like a lot of records and stuff in these rooms. We're going to do LED strip lights in those areas just to kind of brighten that up. Kind of looks like a lot, but just with having those bookshelves in there, I just want to make sure it's well lit so people can see if they need to get those books for records or anything. And then in the stairway, we're just going to kind of leave the stairway lighting as is. Then obviously new lighting control switches and occupancy sensors in the corridors and all the rooms as well. So that's kind of the lighting in a nutshell. On the
one
floor.
quick point there, that room that was called dispatch north of the communications room, let's keep that lighting in there. I think we're going to replace ceilings in there regardless. We're just not going to in the communications area.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll move on to the first floor lighting here. Kind of the same thing again, a lot of new 2x2 LED flat troffer or flat panel lighting will be going on in a lot of these rooms with new controls. Same with the corridors. Kind of following suit with the restrooms, new can lights, new like a recessed linear over the plumbing fixtures in those rooms to make sure it's well lit. Again, part of the jail alternate, we're going to do LED strip lighting, something inexpensive, just to light the area for that way if it's a temporary space or not, if that alternate is accepted. And then kind of over to the public meeting room, we do have new lighting in that area, and then we do have dimming and new controls in all these areas as well, just for presentation purposes, with all new occupancy sensors. Again, we are just going to kind of leave the existing lighting in the stairway just because I didn't feel like it was a necessity to really change it, and it's serving its purpose right now, so that will stay. And then this main entrance, that lighting seems to work in this area, so that's what we're going to keep. But basically the rest of it is going to be all brand new LED lighting on the ground floor. So any questions on this area?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Same thing on the first floor. It's pretty much all new LED lighting, 2x2s, and new lighting controls, new switches, can lights and recessed linears in the restrooms, new exit signs, new emergency lighting in all these areas to meet code. And then go up to the second floor. Again, we're not touching the court area, this large courtroom, but again, it's still brand new lighting, 2x2s, new occupancy sensors, new switches, new controls, recessed linears and cans in the restrooms. For this area, and lastly, it would be up in the penthouse area, those brand new LED strip fixtures with emergency lighting up in that area. So that's kind of lighting in a nutshell. I do have 2 switches up in the penthouse. Try and find a light to enter the space right at the bottom, and then also another switch up in the space in case they get shut off. There's another light up there to turn it on. So again, that's kind of the lighting. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the lighting for this project?
No.
Okay. I will move on to the power side of things. Again, this is kind of out of date, so it sounds like we're just going to keep the dispatch and the communications the way it is for now. We're going to add, I apologize, this is a fire alarm and power as well. So since the building is not sprinkled, we'll be doing brand new smoke detection in the entire building. Brand new notification. We're doing everything on the ceilings just because it's going to be all tile. So that way, if there needs to be modifications, it's easy to access a lot of stuff. Brand new power for all of Joe's mechanical and plumbing equipment. So that's what a lot of this stuff is. And then obviously we're adding some new electrical panels down on this floor as well. Not really any walls that are getting modified, so we're not really adding any wall outlets in this area. It's just pretty much power for mechanical equipment and then brand new fire alarm in this area. So everybody good with that for the basement?
Yeah.
Okay. Up to the ground floor. Again, I'm kind of not going to touch the garage area, just brand new fire alarm in there, new power for the unit heaters, adding some CO detection just for gas purposes in that garage. We're doing new fire alarm and new power in case this vacated jail alternate is accepted. I have added some periodic power throughout. That way, if you ever need to have some general power, or if you decide to add some desks in these areas, you've got it. It's an easy add and at a low cost. Kind of the same thing down in this vacated area as well. Some just general power throughout for like desks, general receptacle use, brand new fire alarm, and then power for mechanical equipment. Again, new fire alarm in the corridors, and then any power for equipment. And as you can see, this will be on each floor. We're going to have 2 brand new electrical panels, one on each side of the building, on each floor going all the way up. And then kind of the heavy area here will be the new public meeting room. That you see there's a lot of activity going on in here. So I know we had talked about, adding power above each seat and then data above each sheet for you folks to use while you're having your meetings. We got a poke through power at the podium, and then we've got extra power and data for the seat over here. And then just kind of some general receptacle powers. That way, if somebody needs to plug in for something, we have it. And then got an office over here with some general power, a storage room, just a general receptacle that will be reused, and then power above this sink area for in case like a coffee pot or a microwave or something needs to be plugged in. So this is kind of where a bulk of the power for me is going to take place at. So I don't know if Vinny, if you want to chime in on any of the low voltage or data for this public
Sure.
meeting area.
Yep. Yeah, in regards to the public meeting area, Dalton will be working with an AV integrator to get the equipment, the hardware and the installation coordinated. But what this drawing shows is more or less rough in only. So kind of looking in this room in general here, starting in this public meeting room toward the rear of the room, we've got we have a camera here in the upper left-hand corner by the door as you enter the space. The S with a circle with an A on it is for some audio ceiling speakers that will be located in this space. So there's approximately 6 of those speakers shown. And then kind of down in this bottom left-hand side of the drawing itself is kind of where we're kind of proposing for an AV cabinet to be located, for a AV head end to be stored, and that will house all the equipment for this space. Down in that corner, kind of where that keynote 5 is, kind of in that corner there'll be a cabinet there. And then we've got a cabinet, or we got a camera toward the rear of the room that will face plan. Ryan, can you kind of highlight kind of where that camera is? Yeah, kind of right there. Yep, there'll be a camera there to the rear of the room that will face towards the planned east, toward the projection screen area. We've got a projector screen toward the front of the room. We've got a kind of a projector location shown for a short throw projector adjacent to that. And then towards the bottom, Ryan, there's where we have our MPC1 and an MPWP-2. That area there will be your main control for HDMI input, as well as any type of AV control system. So that would transition you between presentations and different scenes of your AV system. And then, like Ryan highlighted, we'd have data at 33 inches for all the seats around the table there. And then at the front of the room, toward the upper right-hand corner, we have another camera there that would face the front desk portion there. So that's kind of shown there. And then we've got a couple extra, an extra AV, some extra voice and data, kind of an extra 4-box location here in case there's a need to switch locations from a flexibility standpoint.
Question for you, John. Earlier, right north of the podium, you had a desk with 3 possible seats at it. Is there going to be any power or to that?
Looks like right now there's not. I think we could add that. So power just to the north of the podium.
Like right here?
Yeah, if we could add a floor box there.
I think we probably want data there too, in case somebody was presenting. There's going to be data at the podium, correct?
Yes.
So we've got a poke through at this podium right now. You're thinking about adding another desk right here with some power and data?
There will be a desk there for guests to come in. So yeah, power and data there. One more question, if I could, on the projector screen. If that room is open and there's more, I guess, of a group of people in the room that kind of fills back in to the east. I don't think that projector would be useful if there was a wall there or a temporary, a movable wall. But if that wall is open, then I guess that screen couldn't really be used, I guess, the way I perceive it. So I don't know if there's that's one item. I don't know if maybe there's another spot for that to go. Is that screen for the board to see, or is that for kind of the public to see?
It was for the board to see.
Okay. Could that go to the right or left of where the board sits, so that maybe a sidewall rather than maybe out in front of the public maybe?
Are you thinking like plan south?
Yeah, I think plan south would be a good option.
Because currently it's on the north wall. I mean, it's not gonna matter as long as the board can see it. I mean, it's, the point of it is if somebody remotes in or just like you are right now, John, you're up on the screen so everybody can see it. It's in the meeting.
Or
Yeah.
if they're sharing a graphic so everybody can see what they're sharing.
Yeah. Presentation.
Yeah, the south wall, you'll have your back to it then.
That's the only problem. If somebody's sitting right here, they might
I see what
might be
you're saying.
difficult for them to see if it's placed right here.
Say north wall.
But then the north wall, the way it juts out, you know, you may have some of the public not being able to see it.
Can't you just get something that'll come down? If they're like come down from the ceiling?
I think they're thinking the TV monitors like that. Or display instead of projects.
Well, we talked about the short throw projector actually, which is like, it doesn't need like, see how that we have, 10 feet in between here.
Yeah.
A short throw only needs like 2 feet, if that. So like the podium, it would be located real close where anybody can walk through there and everything, and it doesn't, and the image quality is a heck of a lot better because it's closer. It doesn't have the interruption.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So you have that.
Well, I mean, wherever we put a screen, I mean, as long as you have a screen there, you just do a rough in like that for a projector, right? Within a couple feet of it, and you're all set up. So
So you're not thinking of like in the city council, they've got the permanent displays there. You're not thinking that. You're just thinking of something.
yeah, sure. Problem with the short, with the permanent displays is they go bad. But it's a cheaper price point.
So could you put monitors at different spots?
You could, and have it just repeat. So like if there was, a point in the room where you set the projector and then just have it just, repeat it, that's not a big deal, yeah. Because that all happens on the computer side. I mean, I could plug, 4 HDMIs in that computer and have them all share the same screen. It's just whatever, how I configure it. So that's an option, yeah.
So you think the display versus project?
No, he's saying
Just different display.
have a projector with displays. I mean,
Okay.
you spend a couple $100, get some display screens,
Yep.
like on the other side of the room where the blind spots are, then.
Yeah.
So.
Mostly for the public.
In public, yeah. I like that. I mean, you could even
So-
do one outside the room for a little bit more.
So are we looking for additional monitors in the adjacent room at G02?
I think that could potentially be where some of the public would sit potentially in a larger meeting. So wherever you guys think monitors would be best. I think we had talked about the south wall at one point. And I think we talked about the board having small iPads or whatever to kind of see what's being presented. So
Just make sure wherever we mount a monitor, the rough end has an HDMI rough end that goes from that monitor to that, that tech desk we have, because that'll be the heart of everything. So if you put a monitor on the wall somewhere, we also need that HDMI with the female end ran down to that tech desk.
So the tech desk is in that bottom right corner by the camera. right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So a little desk there.
That's where Courtney's gonna sit.
No, please.
Courtney sits here, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't the keynote thingy, and then there's a table there too.
Podium, yeah. He was circling where Courtney sits, that's why I said that's where
Oh.
Courtney sits. So basically, the tech desk is the control center for that room.
Yeah, and that's what I want. And that way, it doesn't matter what sound system you drop in there. You can, it's interchangeable, and if it ever goes bad, we want something else, we can change it out. It's just looking at forward expandability.
I have nothing.
Yeah, I think it's everything. You guys have anything else for us, John?
no, I don't.
Okay. So that's basically the ground floor. And then back up to the first floor, again, kind of the same thing. brand new fire alarm, new power for these VRI units, new cameras, locations, fire alarm in the corridors, brand new restrooms. So we do have some general receptacles for maintenance purposes in these restrooms. We do have some general receptacles in the election storage room for any kitchen equipment to be plugged in. We do have some new general power added for the work.
Electrical underneath the bathroom sinks.
I do not. Would you like to have power underneath the sinks?
If he ever decides to go electric or the sensor stuff, he's gonna want one. Zach will.
Okay. Okay.
I probably would do that one. That's just if case down the road if he knows.
GFC outlets underneath there.
And then when Courtney does her hair too.
Oh, yeah.
In the pink bathroom.
Scott too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
That floor also has panic buttons. I don't know whether our employees would care to continue that or not. I would assume they would. But I haven't seen any of those brought into consideration yet.
So that system itself is all separate wiring too. So when we're going in there and looking at that, you'll see that wiring running downstairs to the ground floor to the emergency control panel.
Okay, but as we remodel, I don't see any places for those to be placed or.
We'll have to work with Feld on that. They're the one that.
Is that something we'll have to do internal or?
Wireless.
Oh, some of them are, but they still talk back to a central location though, so.
Okay, well, let's not lose sight of that.
That's a good point, Rich. Thank you.
Okay. So I kind of added some general power for the areas where people are going to be sitting. I was told last time I was there, there's not enough power for people to plug in. So I tried to add some more power where I could, just so you had adequate amount. Kind of the same thing over here, added some more general power for like printers, computers, general power for like the treasures where people are going to sit. And then also the same thing above the counters for people to plug in any equipment they might have. Same thing in the meeting room, brand new power above the counters for any equipment. And then we'll move on down here to the driver's license area. We've got brand new power for the driver's license in case you may not now, but if you ever have computers for people to take driving tests, you've got power and data for that. And then we've got some brand new power and data for this area, and then power for taking pictures as well. Just a lot of general power just for any equipment that might be used in the driver's license area. So that's kind of the first floor. Any questions or comments?
I don't have any.
Okay. And then we'll go on up to the second floor, kind of the same thing. There really isn't a whole lot of new work wall-wise going on up here. It's all predominantly mechanical equipment, fire smoke dampers, brand new fire alarm shown in the rooms, corridors. We got brand new panels, again, shown on each end of the building for each floor. We got brand new power for the VRI units up here as well. So again, it's predominantly power for mechanical, and then new fire alarm up in this area. And then lastly would be the penthouse and roof. So again, a lot of new power for mechanical equipment. We've got some general power receptacles up on the roof. That way, if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, you get easy access to plug in for any of the equipment. Got some general power added up in the penthouse as well for any maintenance for that equipment, and then brand new fire alarm as well, and then a new panel up there. And then we show the new power for the split system as well. So it's predominantly a lot of new power for mechanical equipment, and then brand new fire alarm. So that's kind of power and fire alarm in a nutshell. I don't know if you guys have any questions on the power or fire alarm side of things for the project.
No, I don't.
Okay, and then we just kind of show the new riser diagram for new panels that will be put in, how everything will be run, what this sheet is. Got some details for how stuff should be mounted, technology riser, elevator schematic detail, new fire alarm detail, and then panel schedules, more panel schedules, and then just general schedules for equipment that is being used. So that's kind of electrical in a nutshell. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me on that. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Vinny to take care of any technology and low voltage stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Vinny, I will turn the screen over to you. Vinny, you're muted.
I can't whatever it is. Who knows if he wants to do that? I don't know if he's listening to us.
Okay, like you can.
Yeah.
I think he might be trying to get his mic to work.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
We're good, Benny. We got you, buddy.
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah,
You're good.
Okay. I'm not going to go through some of the demo sheets that Ryan discussed earlier today, but I do kind of want to walk through some of the drawings that Dalton and I kind of, when we walked through the site, and we wanted to make sure that we're clear on the cabling and some of the alternate portions of the scope that kind of want to make sure that we're clear on. So as I go through the demo portion, I'll get to the floor plan drawings themselves. Starting down in the basement portion of it, like Ryan kind of mentioned, things that are in the ceiling that's getting taken out. Those devices are going back in the exact same places. So we will have a note on there, Dalton, to make sure that any additional cameras that you may have added since our walkthrough, or other ceiling devices, to make sure that they are getting put back in the exact same places. Kind of walking through, we're going to replace more or less a 1-for-1, getting rid of the older cabling infrastructure, whether it was Cat 5e or going to a Cat 6a shielded cabling for the facility itself. So we've kind of shown those devices here, just kind of replacing those kind of a 1-for-1, just in these offices and so forth. We've kind of we're showing those are being updated. There's no, in this area here, we kind of talked about, this drawing kind of shows the power and the data kind of been taken out. We're not doing any work in this in these communication rooms. And then let's see. We kind of talked a little bit about the public meeting room itself. I just kind of want to make sure if we knew exactly if and where those new displays would be at, so that we could just coordinate that with the power and make sure John was good with those locations as well. We could get those kind of shown on your drawing, John, as to where we'll get those rough and shown. And then kind of like I said, we kind of replaced the data and the voice one for one. So we're kind of showing those with the triangle here with the subscript, the quantities here at these locations. These are above counter here in this meeting room. And then kind of through here, we've got data kind of shown around the table itself. And then we've got a couple floor box locations, which will have a voice as well as some data shown here and here.
Oh, back up there on that meeting room there. Is there gonna be mics on that where the board sits? And down like where Courtney's gonna sit?
That's all in my audio system.
That'll be all there?
Yeah, that's, so when he was talking to me, we're just gonna get our own audio video provider. And when they put that in, they'll put mics and stuff in. I haven't ultimately decided what exactly we're gonna do there for a system, but we got a couple different options we're looking at.
Well, like I hear is a lot of times people listen to this, they can't hear us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we're wanting to fix. So I'm hoping to mic everybody up where,
And make it, oh, your
It's
wife
not
made.
on the desk.
Your
What-
son
what's what I
says he's
got?
coming over.
Okay, good enough, go ahead.
Okay. And this in the temporary space, like I said, Ryan mentioned, we've got additional power and data and voice being added for those temporary spaces here. And then let's see, we don't have any extra voice or data being shown in this vacated jail. Didn't know for sure if that was if there was any needs there, I guess.
I mean, unless we wanted somebody to add offices in there, I mean, you can put, because I mean, they're adding electrical already, and just in case you ever want to put desk in there, it's probably not gonna hurt anything if you put data drops in there too. Regardless if we ever connect them, data drops are cheap as well, so
So just do it while they're in it.
do it while we're there.
Okay, we'll get those added. I'll just taking a note here.
Ability, I'll never even put them on the switch, but have them there, then have to go pull a bunch of lines because we want to put an office there, so.
Okay.
It's not look as nice if I do it.
It's in the same kind of this temporary space here in this plan southeast corner, we've got the data with the power being added in these locations here at this counter. We've got that shown here. Let's see, ground. And then this first floor, I'm starting in this corner here, we've got data and voice being added with for the new offices here and here. And then we've got some at the counter, voice and data. We got 2 data and voice for the printers, kind of shown here. These 3 locations, printer locations, the driver's license area. We've got power and data there. Let's see. Kind of same comment on the library, on the lobby area that we're replacing the cameras are coming down, going back in the same locations. Changes in this area, quarter area, or vault area. And then on second floor is kind of where it gets kind of interesting, is that we're putting in new voice cabling. That's going to, and that's kind of what this drawing kind of shows, different than what Ryan had shown. So we're adding in new voice, and that's going to be recabled with the new cabling down to the basement. And then in this lobby area here, it's the same thing about the cameras, and the wireless access points are going to be taken down and reinstalled. And then we've got some WAPs where this was part of that alternate that we're going to provide additional cabling for here. And then we've got like I said, voice being added for second floor. So we've got the second floor kind of showing voice being added versus the other drawing that was currently shown. probably where I didn't have any changes in the penthouse and the roof. And then probably one of the details I kind of wanted to walk through with Dalton on the line as we walked through the space the other day, kind of identifying our closets. So we've got, we didn't do any type of fiber between the dispatch areas, IDF room to the existing MDF room. That was just existing fiber. That's correct, Dalton?
I'd honestly prefer you replace it and run the drops up to Zach's office. Just, if I recall, that's what we had talked about. So I'm saying run, a 12 pair or whatever from that office up to that ground floor where Zach's at right now. The reason being is that's where the network integrates at, and it doesn't make any sense for it to run down to my office and then back up. So,
Okay.
does that make, you understand what I'm saying on that?
I can just give you a call
Okay.
today, just kind of walk through that portion of it. But we've got new 12 strands of multi-mode fiber ran from the existing IDF closets. What we currently show going down to the MDF closet down in the basement. And then we're going to actually show the demolition of the cat 3 old cable and 25 pair cable that's there, 66 blocks. They're going to test and tone those out before ripping them out and not leaving any of that cabling abandoned at the space. So we've got to got those shown here in all the different IDF closets that had the copper. So we're getting that old stuff ripped out. And then on that second floor, like I mentioned before, the cameras and the WAPs, there's new Cat 6A cabling being installed for those devices that are currently up there today. And then there's new voice Cat 6A shielded cabling that's being added. The data on second floor will remain as existing, no change.
The data itself, the state's actually responsible for. So that's why we're only doing like the cameras, the wider access points, and the voice up there. The state has recently went up there and did some work on it. It's not perfect, but it's probably better than ours right now as far as data goes. So
Let's see. I think that's basically I had for my scope. Or were there any other questions?
I think you answered most of mine when we talked on the phone.
Okay.
Just a real quick one. This AV scope or AV for the audiovisual for the meeting room, will that be bid? Is there enough information in the docs to have that bid by multiple AV contractors, or how does that get bid out and quantified for price to be purchased and installed?
Usually, yeah, we just bid multiple contractors. We ran into like with the jail where when we had it bid out, where you guys went and bid it out like the contractor did. We got a bunch of companies over on the East Coast and stuff that now take care of our stuff and we can never get service. So our concern is we just want to bid locally and make sure that we have somebody that will get service on the stuff if we need help.
So Vinny, are you clear on how that gets bid? Is that how we sort of get that included in the construction sum? Does that go out to bid when these docks go out to bid, or do we need to do an allowance to cover that cost?
I think you're going to need to do an allowance to cover the cost. The drawing that I show right now is just rough in only. So it's pathways, it's boxes, it's conduits for those devices that we've kind of discussed. There's not any hard specifications of material or product to bid, I guess.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I think, Dalton, I would need an allowance number from you if you have a general idea of what the scope of work is going to cost. I'll need to put that in so that the contractor has that cost covered in their bid if that's the way you'd like me to do it. Otherwise, the other option is for the county to handle AV just separate from this project.
I think it'd make more sense if we just separate it out and you guys
Okay.
do the rough ends and that makes it less work for each one of us. So,
Okay, so that's separate scope from the construction
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, so just do the rough ends like you had on I liked how you had the rough ends, like you were, like I said, you had the HDMIs, you had the audio ports and you put some speakers in and stuff. So that's a good start. And most audio providers are going to be able to build off of that. So that's what I'm looking for.
Great. All right. Well, we didn't touch on the cost estimate. I would say if there's any concerns or questions on that, feel free to let me know now, or I guess we can discuss offline as well if anybody has any questions in that regard. So with the cost estimate, we don't have audio visual for the public meeting room included in that. So that'll be outside of that cost estimate. The other question, Bluestone did do a little extra work to capture the additional cabling, and there's a request for additional services there. So that was sent out to everybody, I believe. If there's any issues with adding that scope, let me know. If that needs to go to board vote before that shows up, I suppose, in any sort of invoicing or whatnot, let me know if you'd like to discuss that further. But I think there was a request for the additional services for that, a little bit of extra work. So not a little bit, there's probably a couple days where it's, so I don't want to step on your toes, Vinny. So yeah, additional services, I would say the amount of money is not that great. So let me know on that. If that's something that would be voted on and approved by the board, we could start to reflect that, I guess, in our overall contract. With that, I think we're hitting lunchtime. We're hitting that's probably a good stop point. So unless anybody wants to sort of keep going, we can. Otherwise, I think it's probably a good place to stop. I will always be available, I suppose, after this for any further conversations or questions or whatnot. Let me know if there's any further. But I think we do need to circle back and agree on our bid dates, which we had indicated as September 8th. Going out to bid, we sort of drew the line in the sand there. That's still open to, the conversation. If that's a good time to go out to bid, I think we're doing a little bit to the restrooms that we're going to clean up. I don't think that necessarily would delay that going out to bid date. Does September 8th work for the board to put the project out to bid?
I think so.
Then we have 2 weeks after it goes out to do the pre-bid, and then 2 weeks after that to do the actual, get the bids in. So that's a 4-week process.
So bids would be due October 6th then?
Correct.
John, did you have anything more that you needed to cover in this meeting?
Not necessarily, no. I think we covered quite a bit, and I think we just had the cost estimate. If there's any questions on the cost estimate where it is right now, we could certainly answer any questions or go over that. But that was
The one question I have on cost estimates, is this include your guys' fees in that cost estimates?
fees are separate from the cost
Separate,
estimate
okay.
construction. Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure of that.
sure. Yeah, this is in a nutshell the cost to do for a contractor to come in and do all the work. So that's what's included, and the contractor's fees. And so yeah, that's really the construction number itself for a contractor to come in and do all this work.
Okay.
Good enough.
I'm expecting the bid to come in about 70% of your cost estimate.
I hope so.
I'm just kidding.
I hope it does.
I wasn't.
Put that on the
I
record.
hope it does too, but I bet.
You can always hope, I guess.
Well, thanks for taking the time and going through everything today. We did catch some small things, which is good to catch it now instead of later. Do some of that fixes that you need to do, and then I don't know, I guess we can
Circle back.
circle back.
Yeah, I think what I would do is we'll make the updates, we'll get the plans back in front of you, we'll just maybe send them over to you to have, look at.
Perfect.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I agree 100%. Everything we talked about today gets everybody on the same page. I like to think it avoids thousands of phone calls and questions during bidding and during construction. So it's time well spent. So thank you, everybody. With that, we will update plans accordingly, get those back over to the board to sort of have and look at. And we would anticipate putting this out to bid on September the 8th. So.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
But a motion in a second, no discussion. All those in favor signify by